Chapter 1580. Naturally, the reason Duan Lingtian concluded the five of them were at the imminent saint stage was because they gave him the same feeling as the vice-sect leader of Moon Illumination sect. After Duan Lingtian's cultivation base had broken through to the paramount saint rudiment stage, his senses had become even sharper. He was certain the five of them had followed him when he left the Situ clan. Don't tell me they're five of the shadow guards from the Situ clan? Duan Lingtian thought to himself when he recalled the things he had heard when he was in the Situ clan. When he was in the Situ clan, he would occasionally hear some of the Situ clan's lineal disciples mention some unknown secrets. One of them was the Situ clan's shadow guards. It was said that most of the Situ clan's shadow guards were at the imminent saint stage. Perhaps none of them could be compared to the powerhouses on the heaven ranking. However, since they were never exposed to the public, even the powerhouses on the heaven ranking might not be able to do anything to them. If the powerhouses of the heaven ranking were to be careless, it was very likely that they would die in the hands of these powerhouses. This was how terrifying the Situ clan's shadow guards were. The Situ clan's shadow guards were directly controlled by the clan leader. Therefore, these five shadow guards must have been sent by Situ Hao, the clan leader of Situ clan. The clan leader of Situ clan is really thoughtful. With these five shadow guards around, we won't have to worry about anything even if something unexpected happens along the way, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. However, the Situ clan's foundation is really terrifying. Even though they're both seventh-rate forces, the Moon Illumination sect is far from being comparable to them. Perhaps, the number of saint stage powerhouses in the Moon Illumination sect was not inferior to the Situ clan. However, in terms of quality, they might not be comparable to the Situ clan. Moreover, in terms of imminent saint stage powerhouses, the Moon Illumination sect was far inferior to the Situ clan. In the Moon Illumination sect, there were only a few vice-sect leaders who were at the imminent saint stage. As for the Situ clan, aside from the imminent saint stage elders, more than half of the 18 shadow guards were at the imminent saint stage. This was not something the Moon Illumination sect could compare to. With 5 shadow guards hiding in the dark, Duan Lingtian, Situ Hang, and Situ Ho did not encounter any obstacles along the way as they arrived at the Drift Blaze sect smoothly. The Drift Blaze sect was a sect that was similar to the Moon Illumination sect. It was hidden in the mountains. However, the Drift Blaze sect's estate was located in a group of extinct volcanoes and active volcanoes. To a certain extent, it was much more prominent than the Moon Illumination sect. On the way here, Duan Lingtian had also learned about the Drift Blaze sect from Situ Hang. He knew that the Drift Blaze sect was a seventh-rate force that was even stronger than the Situ clan. All of this was because of the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. The sect leader of Drift Blaze sect was a female powerhouse called Ziyun. However, this Drift Blaze sect's sect leader was so powerful that she was said to be invincible among the seventh-rate forces in Windfall Nation. Moreover, this was publicly acknowledged by the saint stage experts of various forces. What kind of concept was this? Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, was a female powerhouse. In Windfall Nation, regardless of the powerhouses in the Windfall Nation's imperial family, among the seventh-rate forces and forces below the seventh-rate forces, her strength was publicly acknowledged to be the strongest. Due to Ziyun's existence, even the Windfall Nation's imperial family was unwilling to offend the Drift Blaze sect. Moreover, there were even people who said that Ziyun was the strongest. Even in the Windfall Nation's imperial family, there were only a handful of people who could defeat Ziyun. After learning about how powerful Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, was, Duan Lingtian was also taken aback for a long time. It did not cross his mind that a female martial cultivator would be able to reach this stage in such a huge Windfall Nation. It was truly shocking. Apart from that, he also learned that Lady Feng, who was ranked 23rd on the heaven ranking, was Ziyun's direct disciple. At once, Duan Lingtian could not help but sigh emotionally. Like master, like disciple. Naturally, Duan Lingtian also knew that with the potential that Lady Feng had displayed, it would not be difficult for her to surpass her master, Ziyun, if everything went smoothly in the future. After learning about Ziyun's existence from Situ Hang, Duan Lingtian was also curious about the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. He was curious about what kind of woman she was to be able to lead a seventh-rate sect to become the publicly acknowledged number one force below the imperial family in Windfall Nation. In the Dao Martial Saint Land, the strong ones were revered. Perhaps, if the Drift Blaze sect did not care about Ziyun, it might even be inferior to some of the other seventh-rate forces. However, it was precisely because of Ziyun's existence that the Drift Blaze sect surpassed the other seventh-rate forces. In the Dao Martial Saint Land, when a person's strength reached a certain level, it would not be difficult for them to support a force. When they arrived at the Drift Blaze sect, a Drift Blaze sect's disciple welcomed them. However, Duan Lingtian also noticed that when the Drift Blaze sect's disciple who welcomed them found out that he was the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, there was a hint of pity in his eyes when he looked at him. It seems like they're also very confident in that Lady Feng. It was not difficult for Duan Lingtian to figure this out. At the same time, he was even more curious about what kind of woman she was to be able to achieve so much in such a short period of time. At this moment, he could not wait to meet Lady Feng. However, he also learned from Situ Hang that if he wanted to meet Lady Feng, he would have to wait until the day after tomorrow, the day of the battle between him and Lady Feng. Before that, it was almost impossible for him to meet Lady Feng. It was not because Lady Feng had to prepare for the battle, but because Lady Feng had always stayed in the Drift Blaze sect's forbidden area. Even with so many inner and outer court disciples in the Drift Blaze sect, it was rare for them to see her. It was said that in the past year, the Drift Blaze sect's disciples who had seen Lady Feng the most had only seen her a few times. All of these made Lady Feng even more mysterious, causing Duan Lingtian to be extremely curious about her. Although the Drift Blaze sect's disciples' attitude toward Duan Lingtian and his two companions was not very good, as the host, they still obediently arranged a place for Duan Lingtian and his two companions. It was a mansion located halfway up one of the extinct volcanoes in the outer court area of Drift Blaze sect. It was very clean from top to bottom. It was obvious that the Drift Blaze sect had prepared it well. The three of you, this will be your place. Have a good rest tonight. Our Grand Elder will come and look for all of you tomorrow morning. After the Drift Blaze sect's disciple informed Duan Lingtian and his two companions, he left immediately. It was as though he did not want to stay here for a second longer. Duan Lingtian and his two companions looked at each other and shook their heads with a smile. They entered the mansion in unison and each found a room to stay in. At the same time, in the faraway dragons, Duan Rufeng was starting to feel a little impatient as well. Ever since Kumi revealed the big news, the 5-5-clawed Divine Dragon Elders, led by Xuechan, were filled with dissatisfaction toward Diju. At this moment, Dishan, the clan leader of the dragons, greeted Duan Rufeng and told him that they would come up with a conclusion that would satisfy Duan Rufeng. Duan Rufeng, on the other hand, had waited for an entire afternoon. If it was not for the fact that he was wary of Dishan, Duan Rufeng, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, would not have waited for so long. However, after an entire afternoon had passed, Duan Rufeng could no longer wait any longer. All of you have discussed for an entire afternoon, but you still haven't come up with a conclusion? Duan Rufeng's tone was filled with dissatisfaction, causing Dishan and the others to regain their senses. Apart from Diju, who stood at the side with a pale expression and did not participate in the discussion, the 5-5-clawed Divine Dragon Elders, led by Xuechan, sent voice transmissions to Dishan, the clan leader of the dragons, to discuss a solution. After all, the dragons were indeed in the wrong in this matter. Put aside the fact that the son of the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion might not have killed Diju's son. Even if he did, it would be considered as helping the dragons get rid of a scourge. The 5-5-clawed Divine Dragon Elders, led by Xuechan, felt terrified just by thinking about the danger of a 5-clawed devil dragon. They believed that if news of this spread out and reached the ears of the dragons, Diju would definitely become the target of public criticism. On the other hand, even if the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion barged into the dragon's territory without mercy, none of the dragons would blame him. This was because in the eyes of the dragons, he was innocent. He might even be the father of their benefactor. Although the dragons were arrogant, they were a tribe that knew how to be grateful. They would not be ungrateful. He would remember whoever helped him for the rest of his life. As the clan leader of the dragons, Dishan had the final say in many matters. There was no need for him to consider the feelings of the few five-clawed divine dragon elders and the others. However, he was also in the wrong in this matter regarding Diju. After all, he had long known that Diju's son was still alive and had been killed. Later on, he even helped Diju by ordering all the dragons in the Dao Martial Saintland to search for the whereabouts of Duan Lingtian, Diju's enemy. Due to this reason, Di Shan knew he could not ignore the feelings of the few five-clawed divine dragon elders in this matter. Naturally, during the discussion in the afternoon, he had also made up his mind. Diju must not die. Diju was not only a five-clawed divine dragon, but he was also a five-clawed golden dragon. He was the only candidate to be the next clan leader of the dragons. If Diju died, it would mean that the dragons would lose their heir. Among the dragons, all the candidates to be the next clan leader would be a five-clawed golden dragon. This was the rule of the dragons since ancient times. No matter how outstanding a member of the dragons was, it was impossible for him to become the clan leader of the dragons if he was not a five-clawed golden dragon. A five-clawed golden dragon was more like a religion that represented the dragons. It was irreplaceable by any other five-clawed divine dragon. Mansion Master Duan. Di Shan looked at Duan Rufeng and said in a deep voice, "The dragons will give you an explanation regarding this matter. It's good that you're willing to give me an explanation. Tell me, what's your plan? Do you want me to kill him after I bring him away, or do you want me to kill him in front of all of you?" Duan Rufeng asked as he glanced at Di Shan indifferently. Upon hearing Duan Rufeng's words, horror dawned on Diju's face right away. At the same time, he looked at Di Shan anxiously. He was really worried that Di Shan would hand him over. As the saying went, too much concern leads to confusion. This was exactly what Diju was feeling right now. Chapter 1581. Mansion Master Duan. As the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion, you should know us dragons very well. If Diju is a five-clawed golden dragon, it's fine even if I hand him over to you since he has committed such a mistake. Di Shan looked at Duan Rufeng and said, "However, he's a five-clawed golden dragon. I'm sure you know how important a five-clawed golden dragon is to us dragons, Mansion Master Duan. It's impossible for us to hand him over to be slaughtered by others." Di Shan's words were resolute. There was no room for discussion at all. That's right. At this moment, even Xue Chan and the other five-clawed divine dragon elders who wanted nothing more than to beat Diju up nodded in agreement. In this matter, they would stand on the clan leader's side unconditionally. If Diju was a five-clawed golden dragon, perhaps they would not have let Diju go even without Duan Rufeng. However, since Diju was a five-clawed golden dragon, as a member of the dragons, they had no choice but to protect Diju for the sake of the dragons. Diju represented the future of the dragons. Although Di Shan, the current clan leader of the dragons, had an almost endless lifespan. However, according to the rules of the dragons, Di Shan would have to leave the dragons after 1,000 years. To be more precise, he would have to leave the dragons in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saintland. At that time, Di Shan would have to go to the dragons in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland. This was the mission of a five-clawed golden dragon as the Imperial Dragon. It was also the rule set by the dragons in the upper province. Even Di Shan could not violate it. At that time, after Di Shan left, the dragons in the lower province would need a new clan leader. This clan leader could only be a five-clawed golden dragon. Currently, Diju was the only five-clawed golden dragon in the lower province. Due to this reason, Diju was destined to be the next clan leader of the dragons. Although the group of five-clawed divine dragon elders, led by Xue Chan, were dissatisfied with what Diju had done, they had no other choice. Even if the dragons still had a five-clawed golden dragon, they would not protect Diju so mindlessly. Upon hearing clan leader Di Shan's words, Diju heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, he also realized that he had been too worried. As a five-clawed golden dragon and the successor of the dragons would not let anything happen to him. Di Shan, I'm not interested to know what the five-clawed golden dragon means to you dragons. All I know is that Diju almost killed my son. On top of that, you dragons actually want to search for my son with great fanfare? Are you planning to hand him over to Diju after you've found him, so that Diju can kill him? When Duan Rufeng reached the end of his sentence, His voice was filled with rage. Duan Rufeng was enraged, and the hairband that held his long hair was instantly broken. His long hair fluttered in the wind, setting off the monstrous demonic aura that pervaded Duan Rufeng's body. His long hair was like a python that had come to life. At the same time, Duan Rufeng's aura completely changed. At this moment, his pair of eyes that were originally black seemed to be covered with a layer of red. A monstrous killing intent was faintly emitting from his body. This killing intent was closing in on the 7 5-clawed divine dragons. Apart from Di Shan, horror dawned on Diju, and the 5 5-clawed divine dragon elders, led by Xuechan Diju and Qing Yin, who had a weaker cultivation base, were pressured by the killing intent until their faces turned red. They opened their mouths and spat out blood. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At the same time, the void with Duan Rufeng as the center seemed to have completely distorted. Many flowers and trees in the mountain forest were directly overturned. Even the members of the dragons who were far away could feel the great pressure. One by one, they retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. What a powerful aura! After the group of 4-clawed divine dragons elders retreated, all of them had a grave expression on their faces. Their eyes were filled with fear. The other members of the dragons, on the other hand, had long been frightened out of their wits. This is the aura of the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion? At this moment, Duan Rufeng seemed to have transformed into a devil god who ruled over heaven and earth. The might of a devil god was unstoppable. Mansion Master Duan, do you really want to let things escalate to such a stage? Di Shan's expression turned grave as the golden light on his body shone brightly. In just a blink of an eye, he had transformed into a 5-clawed golden dragon that was 1,000 meters long. His aura was so strong that it was not something the 5-clawed green dragon or the 5-clawed purple dragon could compare to. The moment the 1,000 meters long 5-clawed golden dragon appeared, it hovered in the air and blocked the scorching sun, causing more than half of the dragon's residence to be shrouded in darkness. That's the clan leader's true form? At this moment, the group of dragons who were hiding in the distance raised their heads and saw Di Shan's true form immediately. All of them had a horrified expression on their faces. Even the clan leader's true form has appeared. Don't tell me he's going to fight with the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion? Horror dawned on the faces of many dragons. If these two powerhouses who stood at the peak of the Debussy subterranean really fought, more than half of the dragon's residence would be destroyed. Di Shan, it seems like you're going to fight with me. Faced with Di Shan, who had transformed into his true form, Duan Rufeng's expression remained calm. It was as though he was not affected by the aura emitted from Di Shan's gigantic true form at all. On the other hand, Kumi, who was standing behind Duan Rufeng, had a grave expression on his face. Although Kumi was strong and could be considered one of the strongest powerhouses in the Azure Cloud Mansion, he was not weak at all. However, in front of a powerhouse like Di Shan, who was on the same level as Duan Rufeng, his strength was much weaker. Mansion Master Duan, if you insist on killing Diju, I can only choose to fight with you and protect him. Di Shan's thunderous voice resonated in the air. Of course, if you're willing to choose another solution, the dragons, will, naturally, treat you as a friend. We, the dragons, will never attack our friends. What? Are you threatening me? Duan Rufeng smiled as a black flame suddenly rose from his body. The devil flame was monstrous, as though it could devour everything. At the same time, 2 scarlet flames rose from Duan Rufeng's eyes as though they were about to devour someone. When Di Shan saw the aura on Duan Rufeng's body continued to rise and even suppressed his own aura, a hint of dread and anger could be seen in Di Shan's gigantic eyes. On one hand, he was afraid of Duan Rufeng's strength. After all, although Duan Rufeng had only risen for a short period of time, his strength was widely acknowledged to be powerful. Moreover, he was even ranked higher than him on the Supreme Saint ranking. To be honest, he did not even have a 50% chance of winning against Duan Rufeng. On the other hand, he was angry that Duan Rufeng did not give him a way out. Could he not see that he was trying to make peace with him? This was the territory of the dragons. As the clan leader of the Dragon's clan, it was naturally impossible for him to lower the prestige of the dragons. However, he realized Duan Rufeng did not seem to understand his intention at all. He actually wanted to fight with him. Chapter 1582. Mansion Master Duan, just tell me, what do you want before you're willing to spare Diju's life? When Di Shan saw Duan Rufeng was really going to fight with him, he decided to compromise first. Although he was not afraid of fighting with Duan Rufeng, he hesitated when he thought about the impact it would have on the dragons if he lost. He was the clan leader of the dragons. Every action of his represented the dragons. Naturally, he did not dare to challenge them. Clan leader. When Xuechan and the others saw Di Shan had actually compromised, their expressions turned grave. Although they knew they should not have fallen out with Duan Rufeng, the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, they still felt extremely sullen when they saw their clan leader compromising in front of their own home. Naturally, they did not dare to vent their anger on Duan Rufeng. Moreover, Duan Rufeng was not wrong at all. Xuechan and the others glared at Diju furiously. If it was not for the fact that Diju was a 5-clawed golden dragon, they would have personally dealt with him. However, Diju did not care about Xuechan and the others at all. When he realized the dragons would protect him no matter what, he was no longer afraid. However, when he looked at Duan Rufeng, there was a hint of coldness in the depth of his eyes. Until now, he had finally calmed down from the shock that he had received from what happened today. It did not cross his mind that the famous mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Rufeng, was actually the father of Duan Lingtian whom he wished he could kill. After realizing that he was not going to die, his mind became active again. His hatred for Duan Lingtian grew even deeper. Naturally, he did not dare to show it at this moment. Duan Lingtian, I can't believe you're Duan Rufeng's son. I'll definitely make you pay for the humiliation your father has brought me today. Unless you hide in the Azure Cloud Mansion under your father's protection forever, I, Diju, will definitely kill you. Diju was roaring in his heart. If Duan Lingtian were to appear before him now, he would not hesitate to tear Duan Lingtian into pieces. Now, he no longer thought about whether or not Duan Lingtian was the murderer who killed his son, Di Yong. Even if Duan Lingtian had nothing to do with Di Yong's death, he would not let Duan Lingtian go. What? Di Shan, you've turned into your true form. Why don't you accompany me to loosen my muscles? After hearing Di Shan's words, Duan Rufeng had no intention of withdrawing the monstrous demonic flames rising from his body. Instead, he asked with a mocking smile on his face. Duan Rufeng's words made Di Shan blush. Naturally, since he was in his true form of a 5-clawed golden dragon that was more than 1,000 meters long, one could not see his expression. In just a few moments, Di Shan's true form that was more than 1,000 meters long disappeared as he reverted to his human form. He was a majestic old man dressed in a golden robe. His body was sturdy as he stood there like an iron tower. With the disappearance of the 5-clawed golden dragon that was more than 1,000 meters long, it was as though half of the dragon's residents had fallen into darkness. They didn't fight. The group of dragons in the distance could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Although they wanted to witness the battle between their clan leader and the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, they were unwilling to see that scene when they thought about how the residents of the dragons would be destroyed if they fought. Mansion Master Duan, you should be lenient whenever possible. When Di Shan reverted to his human form and subconsciously lowered his head to Duan Rufeng, a voice that seemed to come from all directions resonated like a ghost. Huh. Duan Rufeng frowned when he heard the voice. The voice sounded familiar, but he could not recall who it belonged to at that moment. Unlike Duan Rufeng, Di Shan sighed in relief when he heard this voice. It was as though he had found his savior. After a few moments, a figure that only Duan Rufeng and Di Shan could see flashed across the sky and appeared next to Di Shan in just a blink of an eye. The person who had just arrived was a young man. The young man was tall and had dashing eyebrows and bright eyes. His handsome face had a hint of wickedness to it. The mark between his brows resembled a coin, and it looked like a totem. The young man was dressed in a loose black robe that fluttered even though there was no wind. His long, blood-red hair was draped over his shoulders, setting off his wickedly handsome face and exuding a unique sense of beauty. The first impression this young man gave off was that he was beautiful. Leader Duga. Dishan took the initiative to greet this young man who looked frighteningly young. He did not expect this person to return. Previously, the reason he had appeared so late was because he had gone to see this person. That was why he had been delayed for so long. Leader Dug, Shuechan, and the other five-clawed divine dragon elders also bowed respectfully at the young man. Leader Dugu, don't tell me you're the person from the Mountain Shade Black Market? Diju, who was standing at the side, also had a slight change in his expression. His heart was filled with shock as he stared at the wicked-looking black-robed young man. Why are you here? Upon seeing the black-robed young man, even Duan Rufung could not help but frown. In fact, he did not reveal such an expression even when he was facing Dishan. However, fear rose in his heart when he saw this black-robed young man. Mansion Master Duan, if you can come to the dragons as a guest, why can't I? Perhaps I came to the dragons earlier than you. However, if both of you didn't reveal your powerful auras and fight each other, I'm afraid I wouldn't have sensed your presence and wouldn't have returned. The black-robed young man looked at Duan Rufung and said with a seemingly friendly smile. Naturally, it was only a friendly expression. However, a cold gleam flashed in the depth of his eyes from time to time. It was apparent he did not get along with Duan Rufung. Hermf, your business in the Mountain Shade Black Market has already reached the dragons. Don't you think you've stretched your hand too far? Duan Rufung sneered. You don't have to worry about this, Mansion Master Duan. However, I'm more curious about why you've come to the dragons. Moreover, you're so aggressive and unforgiving. The black-robed young man looked at Duan Rufung with interest. You don't have to worry about this, Leader Dugu. Your Mountain Shade Black Market has nothing to do with me. However, it's best if you don't interfere in the matter between me and the dragons. Otherwise, I don't mind making a trip to the Mountain Shade Black Market. Duan Rufung said coldly. When the black-robed young man heard Duan Rufung's threatening words, the smile on his face disappeared. Mansion Master Duan, don't tell me the Azure Cloud Mansion wants to declare war on both the Mountain Shade Black Market and the dragons at the same time? Leader Dugu, if that's what you want to see, naturally, I don't mind fulfilling your wish. However, I'm afraid you'll have to ask clan leader Dishan if the dragons are willing to go crazy with the Mountain Shade Black Market. Chapter 1583. Upon hearing Duan Rufung's words, the black-clad young man immediately looked at Dishan. Dishan was also slightly embarrassed. The two people in front of him were the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion and the leader of Mountain Shade Black Market. The Azure Cloud Mansion and the Mountain Shade Black Market had always been enemies. If it was not necessary, naturally, he did not want to get involved. Moreover, he knew very well. Even if the dragons joined forces with the Mountain Shade Black Market to deal with the Azure Cloud Mansion, they might not be able to annihilate it. If they failed to annihilate the Azure Cloud Mansion, what awaited the dragons was endless calamity. However, the Mountain Shade Black Market was different from the dragons. The Mountain Shade Black Market had always been enemies with the Azure Cloud Mansion. Even if they became enemies again, it would not affect the Mountain Shade Black Market much. However, to the dragons, it would affect them greatly. Apart from that, the Mountain Shade Black Market style had always been bad. It would be fine if they only cooperated with the Mountain Shade Black Market in certain aspects. After all, many forces in the Dao Martial Saintland had cooperated with the Mountain Shade Black Market to some extent. However, most of them only wanted to profit from the Mountain Shade Black Market. They had never thought of joining forces with the Mountain Shade Black Market. If the dragons became allies with the Mountain Shade Black Market, they would become jackals of the same tribe. The dragons' reputation in the Dao Martial Saintland would definitely be affected. Most of the Mountain Shade Black Market's businesses were illegal. They did not have a good reputation in the Dao Martial Saintland. If the dragons really joined forces with the Mountain Shade Black Market, the arrogant dragons might become the target of scorn. This was something Dishan was unwilling to see. Due to this reason, it was impossible for Dishan to join forces with the Mountain Shade Black Market to deal with the Azure Cloud Mansion, whether it was because he was afraid of the Azure Cloud Mansion, or because he did not want to have a close relationship with the Mountain Shade Black Market. Leader Dugu, I appreciate your kindness. However, it's true that the Dragon Clan is in the wrong this time. Dishan rejected the black-clad young man's stare. Humph. Hearing Dishan's rejection, the black-robed young man's expression changed. In the end, he snorted and said, "If that's the case, I won't get involved in the matter between you two." The moment the black-robed young man, leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market, finished speaking, he seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind and vanished without a trace. Although leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market had long guessed that Dishan would make such a choice, he could not help but secretly scold Dishan for not knowing how to appreciate favors. However, since he could not drag the dragons into this matter to deal with the Azure Cloud Mansion, there was no need for him to continue staying here. Chief Dugu, Duan Rufeng has a son named Duan Lingtian. I'm guessing he's not in the Azure Cloud Mansion right now. Perhaps, even Duan Rufeng doesn't know where he is. Just as leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market was about to leave, a voice transmission entered his ears. Duan Rufeng's son? Duan Lingtian? Interesting. How interesting. When leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market received this news, his eyes lit up. However, since he had left the dragons in just a blink of an eye, nobody noticed his gaze. Dugu did not doubt the authenticity of this news at all. This was because when he heard the voice transmission, he knew who it was. It was none other than the other five-clawed golden dragon from the dragons, Diju. Although Diju was only a nobody in his eyes, he was not worth mentioning at all. However, due to the five-clawed golden dragon's bloodline in Diju, he had paid attention to Diju before. He knew Diju was a vengeful person. To be more precise, he was a five-clawed golden dragon. Although he did not know how the conflict between the dragons and Duan Rufeng started, based on the situation earlier, he could faintly tell everything started with Diju. Due to this reason, he did not doubt the authenticity of Diju's voice transmission. As for Diju, who sent the voice transmission to leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market, a cold gleam flashed in the depth of his eyes as he muttered to himself, "Duan Lingtian, just wait for the people from the Mountain Shade Black Market to look for trouble with you. Perhaps I don't even have to make a move. The people from the Mountain Shade Black Market will definitely kill you." In fact, Diju was not certain if Duan Lingtian was in the Azure Cloud Mansion or not. The reason he sent the voice transmission to the leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market was because he hoped he would look for trouble with Duan Lingtian. Naturally, even if Duan Lingtian was really in the Azure Cloud Mansion, unless Duan Lingtian did not leave the mansion, he believed the Mountain Shade Black Market would not allow Duan Lingtian to roam freely outside. As the archenemy of the Azure Cloud Mansion, the Mountain Shade Black Market would not let go of any opportunity to attack the Azure Cloud Mansion. This was especially true when he was the only son of the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Mansion Master Duan, tell me your condition. I believe you already have a plan in mind. Dishan looked at Duan Rufeng and said bluntly. Since Duan Rufeng did not give him a way out, he could only give himself a way out. Although it was slightly embarrassing, he had no other choice. 3 years later, let my son enter the dragon cleansing pool of the dragons. Duan Rufeng did not say anything else when faced with Dishan's bluntness and went straight to the point. He also knew it would not benefit him if he forced Dishan into a corner at this moment. Although he was not afraid of Dishan or the dragons, he could not help but be wary of the dragon's strength. This was because the dragons had a close relationship with the upper province. According to rumors, the dragons were divided into the dragons of the upper province and the dragons of the lower province. The dragons in front of him were only the dragons of the lower province. The dragon cleansing pool. Duan Rufeng finally stated his condition. He wanted his son, Duan Lingtian, to enter the dragon's dragon cleansing pool 3 years later. The moment Duan Rufeng's words left his mouth, horror dawned on Dishan and the five-clawed divine dragons. It did not cross their minds that Duan Rufeng would make such a request. This request was just too ridiculous. Impossible. Before Dishan could reply to Duan Rufeng, Diju had already roared. The dragon cleansing pool is the holy land of us dragons. Only a five-clawed golden dragon can enter it. Mansion Master Duan, don't go too far. Go too far? Upon hearing Diju's roar, Duan Rufeng smiled. It's fine if you don't want my son to enter the dragon cleansing pool, but I'll take your life. Let's see if your life is more important to you, or if the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool is more important. You should think about it carefully. Even if you can't enter the dragon cleansing pool in 3 years, you'll still be able to enter after 5,000 years. If you die, let alone 5,000 years, even if 50,000 years pass, the dragon cleansing pool will have nothing to do with you. Duan Rufeng's words were powerful and resonating. Every word seemed to have transformed into a heavy hammer that smashed violently on Diju's chest. It caused his face to turn pale, and he looked extremely wretched. Although he knew the dragons would protect him, he was afraid when he faced Duan Rufeng. He was afraid from the bottom of his heart. The dragon cleansing pool was the holy land of the dragons. It would only be opened once every 5,000 years. During those 5,000 years, the dragon cleansing pool would use its own method to endlessly nurture the heaven and earth essence. Since the dragon cleansing pool would only be opened once every 5,000 years and only one person could enter at a time, this opportunity was extremely precious to the dragons. Due to this reason, it would usually be reserved for the young five-clawed golden dragons. After the five-clawed golden dragons entered the dragon cleansing pool, apart from the fact that their cultivation base would more or less increase, most importantly, their potential would be completely unleashed. That was the most important thing. It was said that the dragon cleansing pool could unleash the potential in every corner of a person's body. Even the current patriarch of the dragons, Dishan, had never entered the dragon cleansing pool before. It could even be said that Dishan was a tragedy. This was because when he was young, there was another five-clawed golden dragon who was of the same generation as him. That five-clawed golden dragon was superior to him in every aspect. For this reason, the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool 5,000 years ago was also taken away by that five-clawed golden dragon. Before entering the dragon cleansing pool, although that five-clawed golden dragon was stronger than Dishan, it was not by much. However, after he came out of the dragon cleansing pool, he had the strength to suppress Dishan with a flip of his hand. One could easily imagine how powerful the dragon cleansing pool was. During that era, that five-clawed golden dragon was publicly acknowledged as the successor to the next patriarch of the dragons. However, not long after he came out of the dragon cleansing pool, he possessed the strength to suppress all the dragons other than the patriarch of the dragons. Due to this reason, he became arrogant and caused trouble everywhere he went. In the end, it was said that he had offended a young lady from a powerful force who had come to the lower province for a vacation and was killed by the young lady's attendant. Due to this reason, the five-clawed golden dragon who was supposed to lead the dragons to glory, who had been baptized by the dragon cleansing pool, died just like that. This became the greatest regret of the dragons. Under that circumstance, Dishan, the spare tire, had been promoted to the position smoothly. However, in the history of the dragons, he was one of the few patriarchs who had never entered the dragon cleansing pool. Currently, Dishan was no longer young, and his strength had reached a certain level. Even if he were to enter the dragon cleansing pool again, he would not be able to improve much. It was meaningless. For this reason, Dishan planned to let Diju enter the dragon cleansing pool when it opened 3 years later. He believed that after being baptized by the dragon cleansing pool, Diju would definitely surpass him in the future and become a powerful patriarch of the dragons. Due to the fact that he did not enter the dragon cleansing pool that year, although his strength was powerful, it did not reach the level where he could look down on the lower province. Even in front of a leader of a force like Duan Rufeng, he had to be careful. In fact, all the dragons' patriarchs who had entered the dragon cleansing pool when they were young before they followed the rules of the dragon's clan and went to the upper province, they were almost invincible in the lower province. From this, one could see the effect of the dragon cleansing pool. Due to this reason, when Duan Rufeng proposed the condition of letting his son, Duan Lingtian, enter the dragon cleansing pool, Diju was so anxious that he jumped out. At that moment, he even forgot that Duan Rufeng was not someone he could provoke. He was anxious because he did not want to follow in Dishan's footsteps. Chapter 1584. In Diju's opinion, the dragon cleansing pool would be opened 3 years later. If he could enter at that time, he would definitely undergo a brand new transformation. His achievements in the future would far surpass Dishan. If he missed the opportunity 3 years later, even if he could enter the dragon cleansing pool 5,000 years later, he would miss the best age to enter. Although dragons had an extremely long lifespan, Only dragons below 5,000 years old could be considered young dragons. Once one reached 5,000 years old, many things would be fixed. Usually, dragons with ordinary innate talent at 5,000 years old would not have any great achievements in their lifetime. However, Duan Rufing's words had killed his hope. How could he be willing to accept this? However, faced with the domineering Duan Rufeng, he did not dare to say anything. He could only look at Duan Rufeng and hurriedly send a voice transmission to him. Clan leader, the dragon cleansing pool is the foundation of us dragons. It only opens once every 5,000 years. Please don't give this opportunity to Duan Rufeng. If an outsider uses the dragon cleansing pool 3 years later, we dragons will be silent for another 5,000 years. As Diju spoke, he revealed his trump card. As a 5-clawed golden dragon, he naturally knew Dishan's ambition. He also knew that Dishan was filled with regret for not being able to enter the dragon cleansing pool that year. Naturally, Dishan was not regretful about the elevation of his ability. Dishan was regretful that he could not lead the dragons to glory because he did not elevate his ability through the dragon cleansing pool. Although the current dragons were still the top force in the WCI subterranean, they were no longer comparable to the dragons of the past. All of this was because of him, the clan leader. Just like the previous clan leader of the dragons. Due to the baptism of the dragon cleansing pool, his ability was so powerful that he looked down on everyone. He had also led the dragons to the true peak of the WCI subterranean. During that era, there were not many forces in the WCI subterranean who dared to challenge the dragons. Although the current dragons were glorious on the surface, they were actually going downhill. The root of all this was because the dragons lacked a deterrent force, and this deterrent force came from the strength of the dragons themselves. Being the patriarch of this generation of dragons, Dishan's strength was not enough to be a deterrent. Otherwise, he would not have been forced by Duan Rufeng to seek peace. If it had been the previous chief of the dragons, he would not have been afraid of Duan Rufeng at all. That was because the strength of that dragon chief was almost at the top of the WCI subterranean. The leader of that generation of dragons was ranked in the top 3 on the Supreme Saint ranking. Upon hearing Diju's voice transmission, Dishan felt irritated. If it wasn't for this guy, the dragons wouldn't have been so passive this time. If not for this guy causing trouble, why would Duan Rufeng make such a request? However, even if Diju had sent him a voice transmission, it was still difficult for Dishan to agree to Duan Rufeng's request. Although Dishan would not snatch the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool 3 years later, he had long decided to give it to Diju. This was because Diju was the next chief of the dragons. If he could enter the dragon cleansing pool and be baptized, he would definitely be able to restore the glory of the previous dragons. At that time, as long as Diju had time to grow, the dragons would not be afraid of the Azure Cloud Mansion or the Mountain Shade Black Market. As the chief of the dragons, Dishan was very qualified. At the very least, he would stand on the side of the dragons and not on his own. If he was a selfish person, he would definitely not give the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool 3 years later to Diju. Although he wouldn't be able to improve much by entering the dragon cleansing pool, if he were to be selfish, he wouldn't miss the opportunity to improve himself no matter how small a mosquito was. It was because he always stood on the side of the dragons that he allowed Diju to do whatever he wanted. For example, when Diju sent his son, the 5-clawed devil dragon, Diyong, away, he already knew about it. He just did not expose it. Moreover, when Diju had threatened him and asked him to help him find Duan Lingtian, he had done it without any hesitation. It was not that he was afraid of Diju, but he was afraid Diju would leave the dragons in a fit of anger. If that happened, the dragons would lose their heir. At that time, he would become the sinner of the dragons. Even if it was against his conscience to help Diju, he still did it for the sake of the dragon's future. Dishan was such a person. To be more precise, he was such a dragon. He had lived for the dragons his entire life. Due to this reason, it was impossible for him to agree to Duan Rufeng's condition. After taking a deep breath, Dishan looked at Duan Rufeng and said with certainty, "Mansion Master Duan, since you know about our dragon cleansing pool, you should know what it means to us dragons. You should know that it's impossible for us dragons to let an outsider enter the dragon cleansing pool. I've said it before. You don't have to mention the dragon cleansing pool. However, you must hand Diju over to me. Duan Rufing's tone was calm as he looked at Diju. From the beginning until the end, it seemed like he was not surprised by Di Shan's rejection at all. Mansion Master Duan, you're making things difficult for me, Di Shan said in a deep voice. Making things difficult for me? Duan Rufing's expression turned grave as he sneered. Di Shan, you seem to have misunderstood something. Did I, Duan Rufing, come to the dragons for no reason? If it wasn't for the fact that the dragons have gone too far, I wouldn't have come to your lousy place even if you invited me with 8 carriers. Dragons? Lousy place. Not many people in the entire Dao Martial Saintland would dare to say such words. However, Duan Rufeng had said so. The few 5-clawed divine dragon elders, led by Xue Chan, paled when they heard his words. However, they did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. It was obvious this Mansion Master Duan was in a fit of anger. At this moment, whoever dared to provoke him would be asking for trouble. They were not stupid. Mansion Master Duan, I admit that the dragons are in the wrong. Apart from these 2 conditions, I'll agree to any of your conditions. Di Shan sighed and said helplessly. His heart was filled with bitterness. If he was the one who had entered the dragon cleansing pool 5,000 years ago, would he be in such a passive position now? If he had entered the dragon cleansing pool that year, he was confident he would have the strength to easily defeat Duan Rufeng. I'm not interested in making a 3rd request, Duan Rufeng said nonchalantly, causing Di Shan's expression to turn grave. Even Diju and the few 5-clawed divine dragon elders, led by Xue Chan, had a change of expression. They did not expect Duan Rufeng to be so resolute. Either he would let his son enter the dragon cleansing pool 3 years later, or he would kill Diju. Mansion Master Duan, Di Shan frowned as his expression turned grave. He was already considering if he should lure Duan Rufeng away from the dragon's estate and have a final battle with him. I haven't finished my sentence. Duan Rufeng interrupted Di Shan and said nonchalantly, although I won't make a 3rd request, I'm willing to add some conditions to my son's request to enter the dragon cleansing pool. These conditions are fair to all of you dragons. If all of you agree to it, I'll leave right away and forget about Diju's previous actions. Di Shan and the few 5-clawed divine dragons exchanged glances. They could see the confusion in each other's eyes. Please speak, Mansion Master Duan. Di Shan quickly looked at Duan Rufeng with an expression that said, I'd like to hear more about it. As far as I know, although the dragon cleansing pool will open 3 years later, it's up to you, the clan leader of the dragons, to decide when it will open. Moreover, it will open 6 years later at the latest. Am I right? Duan Rufeng asked as he looked at Di Shan. Mansion Master Duan really knows a lot about the dragon cleansing pool of us dragons. Di Shan smiled wryly as he secretly cursed Duan Rufeng. Could it be that he had been coveting the dragon cleansing pool of the dragons since a long time ago? Otherwise, how could he know so much about the dragon cleansing pool? The dragon cleansing pool will open 3 years later. I'll decide when it will open. However, it can only be delayed by 3 years at most. If you don't enter after 6 years, you won't be able to enter for the next 5,000 years. Seems like it's the same as what I know. Duan Rufeng nodded. At the same time, he looked at Diju and said nonchalantly, my condition is, the dragon cleansing pool will open 2 years later. In other words, it will open 5 years later. Before it opens, my son will fight with Diju. The winner will enter the dragon cleansing pool. Are you satisfied with this, clan leader Di Shan? If you're still not satisfied with this, then I have nothing else to say. Let's fight. When Duan Rufeng reached the end of his sentence, he looked at Di Shan again as though he was ready to fight at any time. 5 years? When Di Shan heard this, he did not agree immediately. Instead, he looked at Diju immediately. Among the members of the dragons present, Diju was the only one who had come into contact with Duan Rufeng's son, Duan Lingtian. Therefore, he had a better understanding of Duan Lingtian. However, when he looked at Diju, he saw that Diju's eyes were gleaming with great confidence. It was as though he did not reject the additional condition that Duan Rufeng had proposed at all. Diju, are you confident? Di Shan asked through voice transmission. He wanted to confirm it further. Clan leader, agree with him? Diju replied through voice transmission. His tone was filled with confidence. I've come into contact with that Duan Lingtian before. Although his innate talent is not bad, he's just us. Let alone 5 years. Even if he's given 10 or 20 years, he won't be a match for me. This Duan Ruffing has really underestimated me. He actually proposed such an additional condition. When Diju reached the end of his sentence, his tone was filled with disdain. Are you sure? Dishan was still a little hesitant. Since Duan Ruffing has proposed such a condition, I'm sure he won't say it without thinking. You better think this through. If you're defeated 5 years later, you'll lose the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool. At that time, our dragons will be silent for another 5,000 years. If you're defeated, not only will you miss out on a great opportunity, but you'll also become a sinner of the dragons. A sinner of the dragons. One must admit that Dishan's words caused Diju to fall into silence. Chapter 1585. When Diju recalled how he had told leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market about Duan Lingtian through voice transmission, he felt relieved. In his opinion, he did not even know if Duan Lingtian would still be alive after 5 years. Even if he was still alive, it was impossible for him to be a match for him. Diju was very confident in his own strength. He wants Duan Lingtian to defeat me after 5 years? What a fool's dream. Diju was filled with disdain for Duan Rufing's additional condition. He did not think Duan Lingtian would be able to defeat him after 5 years. Clan leader, in my opinion, Duan Rufing is afraid of us dragons. It's just that he doesn't dare to show it directly. I think he's just trying to give himself a way out by proposing such a condition. I don't think he thinks his son will be able to defeat me after 5 years. Diju sent a voice transmission to Dishan, feeling good about himself. However, Dishan was a cautious person. It's not that I haven't thought about what you've said, but it's quite impossible. Ever since Duan Ruffing rose to power, he has always been domineering. I'm sure you know how the Azure Cloud Mansion used to be. However, he's holding up the Azure Cloud Mansion all by himself. Even Kumi and Rongyuan, the 2 former mansion masters of Azure Cloud Mansion who did not pay much attention to them, respect him greatly. This Duan Ruffing is not an ordinary person. Apart from giving in, the reason he proposed such a condition is because he wants us dragons to agree to give his son a chance to enter the dragon cleansing pool, Dishan continued to say. He still felt it would be inappropriate for him to agree to Duan Rufing's request without careful consideration. However, based on Duan Rufing's attitude, it could be seen this was his bottom line. Due to this reason, although Dishan was unwilling to agree to Duan Rufing's request, he did not reject it directly. He wanted to hear Diju's opinion. After all, Diju was the person who did not want the chance to enter the dragon cleansing pool to fall into the hands of others the most. However, judging from the current situation, Diju seemed to be very confident. Seeing Duan Rufing's face darkening and the demon aura rising from his body, Dishan knew that he had to make a decision. Diju, do you mean that I should agree with him? Dishan asked Diju through voice transmission again. Promise him. In my opinion, he's just deliberately mystifying things. Diju replied with absolute certainty. When Dishan saw how determined Diju was and faced with the pressure from Duan Ruffing, he finally nodded and agreed to it. Mansion Master Duan, I can agree to your request. We'll open the dragon cleansing pool 5 years later. 5 years later, if your son, Duan Lingtian, can defeat Diju, I'll give your son the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool. However, if your son loses, the opportunity to enter the dragon cleansing pool will still belong to Diju. Since clan leader Dishan has agreed to it, please hand over one of the keys to open the dragon cleansing pool. Clan leader Dishan, do you want me to keep the sun key or the moon key? After Dishan agreed to it, Duan Ruffing asked nonchalantly. The dragon cleansing pool of the dragons would only be open once every 5,000 years. Each time it was opened, the sun key and the moon key that were passed down by the dragons would be used. The dragon cleansing pool could only be opened by using these 2 keys at the same time. These 2 keys were usually kept by the clan leader of the dragons. For this reason, Duan Ruffing directly asked for the key from Dishan. Mansion Master Duan, there's no need for this, right? Don't tell me that as the clan leader of the dragons, I'll lie to you? Dishan asked with a frown. The Sun Key and the Moon Key were the holy relics of the dragons. Naturally, he was unwilling to hand over one of them, even if it was only temporarily kept by Duan Rufeng. I'm worried. Duan Rufeng's reply was very straightforward. It was so straightforward that it caused Dishan's expression to turn grave immediately. This was because Duan Rufeng was questioning his character. Mansion Master Duan, how about this? If you don't believe me, how about I swear on the lightning penalty oath? Dishan looked at Duan Rufeng. Naturally, I'll swear on the lightning penalty oath. However, I must keep one of the keys to open the dragon cleansing pool. Clan leader Dishan, you can rest assured. 5 years later, no matter if my son wins or loses, I'll return the key to you. For this, I'll swear on the lightning penalty oath as well. Duan Rufeng said. When Dishan saw how Duan Rufeng had put it, he naturally could not reject him. If he did, it would mean that he had a guilty conscience. Diju, I hope you won't disappoint me. Dishan thought to himself. With a raise of his hand, he took out a crescent-shaped key that looked like it was made of jade. It shone faintly under the sunlight and looked extremely beautiful. This key was one of the 2 keys to open the dragon cleansing pool, the Moon Key. After receiving the Moon Key from Dishan, regardless of whether it was Dishan or Duan Rufeng, both of them swore on the lightning penalty oath. Dishan swore on the lightning penalty oath that he had promised Duan Rufeng that if Duan Lingtian could defeat Diju 5 years later, he would allow Duan Lingtian to enter the dragon cleansing pool. On the other hand, Duan Rufeng swore on the lightning penalty oath that if Duan Lingtian was defeated by Diju 5 years later, he would no longer have any ideas about the dragon cleansing pool. Moreover, he would return the Moon Key to the dragons. Clan leader Dishan, we'll meet again in 5 years. After both of them swore on the lightning penalty oath, Duan Rufeng glanced at Dishan indifferently and said. Then, without waiting for Dishan's reply, he turned around and left with Kumi. In just a blink of an eye, they disappeared before Dishan and the others' eyes. Clan leader, it's obvious the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion has confidence in his son. Don't you think you're being a little too rash by agreeing to it so hastily? Elder Qing Yin, the 5-clawed green dragon, asked with a frown. Xuechan and the other few 5-clawed divine dragon elders were also frowning slightly. Now that things have developed to this stage, do you think I can still refuse? Based on Duan Rufeng's attitude earlier, this is already his bottom line. Moreover, Diju is the one who understands Duan Rufeng's son the most among us. Even he thinks I should agree to Duan Rufeng's request. Do you think I should refuse? Dishan said nonchalantly. At once, Xuechan and the others looked at Diju and asked at once, Diju, are you really confident? Diju, don't try to look impressive. If you can't do it, just say so. If you lose 5 years later, not only will you lose a fortuitous encounter, but you'll also become a sinner of the dragons. Diju, this is not a joke. One by one, the 5-clawed divine dragon elders began to criticize Diju. Elders, I know all of you are worried. Diju looked at Xuechan and the others. I've met Duan Rufeng's son, Duan Lingtian. When I last saw him, he was only a Perfection Saint Rudiment stage martial cultivator. Do you think a Perfection Saint Rudiment stage martial cultivator will be able to defeat me in 5 years? Put aside the fact that he's Duan Lingtian and not Duan Rufeng. Even if Duan Rufeng's cultivation base was given to his son will still not be a match for me. After he finished speaking, Diju snorted softly and left. Although he sounded confident, he did not dare to be negligent. After all, this was a matter of great importance. He planned to spend the next 5 years in closed-door cultivation. Recently, he had noticed that the bottleneck of his cultivation base had loosened. If he could take another step forward, his strength would be on par with a powerhouse like the 5-clawed purple dragon, Elder Violet Crystal. 5 years later, he was confident he could defeat the 5-clawed green dragon, Elder Qing Yin. Naturally, this did not mean that Diju thought Duan Lingtian would have the strength to threaten him in 5 years. Instead, he wanted to defeat Duan Lingtian with his most powerful strength so that Duan Rufeng would realize how stupid he was. Today, although he did not dare to act presumptuously in front of Duan Rufeng, he actually wished he could cut Duan Rufeng into 1,000 pieces in his heart. Naturally, he knew he did not have the strength to do so. Due to this reason, he could only take revenge on Duan Rufeng and discuss Duan Rufeng through other means. The battle with Duan Lingtian in 5 years was undoubtedly an opportunity for him. At that time, he would show his most powerful self and defeat Duan Lingtian in one fell swoop. He would make Duan Rufeng feel despair. Naturally, Duan Rufeng did not know what Diju was thinking. Naturally, Duan Rufeng was not interested in finding out as well. After leaving the dragons, Kumi, who was following closely behind Duan Rufeng, could not help but ask in confusion, "Lord Mansion Master, will young Mansion Master really be able to defeat Diju in 5 years? Although Diju hasn't fully grown, he's still a 5-clawed golden dragon, the royal family among the dragons. With his current strength, he's comparable to the 5-clawed divine dragon elders who are slightly weaker among the dragons." Based on Kumi's words, it was obvious he did not believe his young Mansion Master would be able to defeat Diju in 5 years' time. After all, Diju's foundation was weak. Even the current Diju was extremely powerful. Even if he did not make any progress in 5 years' time, his young Mansion Master might not be a match for him. "Kumi, you're not an outsider, so I won't hide it from you." Duan Rufeng's eyes gleamed as he said unhurriedly, "The reason I made such a request is actually because of the Oracle Man's instructions. In fact, even I don't really believe my son will be able to defeat Diju in 5 years' time. It's just too unrealistic." When Duan Rufeng reached the end of his sentence, he sighed softly. "The Oracle Man?" Upon hearing Duan Rufeng's words, Kumi's eyes lit up immediately. "Actually, that was the second time I met the Oracle Man. However, that time, he personally came to see me in the Azure Cloud Mansion. His cultivation base is unfathomable. Not only that, but he even appeared in front of me without me noticing. You should know what that means." When Duan Rufeng reached the end of his sentence, his expression was solemn. Don't tell me he's a powerhouse from the upper province?" Kumi sucked in a breath of cold air and asked, "I'm certain he's from the upper province. Moreover, I feel that his strength is considered extraordinary even in the upper province." Duan Rufeng continued to say, "It's said that the Oracle Man is elusive. Leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market had looked for him many times, but it was to no avail. I can't believe you've actually met him twice, Lord Mansion Master. Not only that, but he even took the initiative to visit you the second time as well." Chapter 1586. If Dugu finds out that the Oracle Man took the initiative to look for you, Mansion Master, I'm afraid he'll be furious. A bright smile that was uglier than crying appeared on Kumi's face. It was as though he could already see the scene of Leader Dugu of the Mountain Shade Black Market flying into a rage. Duan Rufeng smiled faintly and did not reply. In fact, he was also puzzled by this matter. The first time he encountered the Elder of Heavenly Secrets, he felt that his luck was exceptionally good. This was especially the case when the Elder of Heavenly Secrets was willing to divine for his son, which made him even more indescribably delighted. The second time, the Oracle Man took the initiative to look for him. Moreover, it was also because of his son. This made him feel even more flattered. However, while he was flattered, his heart was also filled with suspicion. Just what kind of magic did his son have that could make a powerhouse like the Elder of Heavenly Secrets so attentive? He had thought of many possibilities for this. However, all of them were unrealistic. However, ever since Rong Yuan came to look for him and told him that the dragons were searching for his son, Duan Lingtian, he respected the Oracle Man even more. This was because the second time the Oracle Man came to look for him, he mentioned the dragons. Although he did not mention the details, he did mention that if it was possible, he would fight for the opportunity for his son, Duan Lingtian, to enter the dragon cleansing pool for the dragons. Apart from that, he also mentioned the importance of the dragon cleansing pool to the dragons. He also said that if it was a crucial moment, they could both compromise and set up a 5-year pact. The 5-year pact was the agreement he had made with Diju. This pact was also decided by the Oracle Man, and he was merely following his instructions. Although he did not think his son would be able to defeat Diju in 5 years, he trusted the Oracle Man more. The Oracle Man's divine foresight had completely convinced him, causing him to believe in the Oracle Man's words without a doubt. It was because of this that the following events happened. Shortly after, Kumi also learned about this from unravel. He sighed with emotion. In the past, I have only heard about the Oracle Man's divine strategy. This time, I have really learned something new. Perhaps, when he came to look for you, Lord Mansion Master, he already knew about the relationship between you and the Dragon Clan. Lord Mansion Master, are we returning to the Azure Cloud Mansion now? Kumi looked at unravel and asked. In his opinion, the Mansion Master should return to the Azure Cloud Mansion and pass down the order to search for the young Mansion Master. There's no hurry to return to the Azure Cloud Mansion. However, in the face of Kumi's inquiry, unravel shook his head. Let's go to the Greenwave Han Mansion. Greenwave Han Mansion? Upon hearing unravel's words, a puzzled expression appeared on Kumi's face. Going to the Greenwave Han Mansion? Let's go to the Greenwave Han Mansion. If I'm not mistaken, my other daughter-in-law should be there. Let's go and bring her home. unravel smiled. Although the Jade Token Tian left behind in the Crimson Sky Kingdom on Cloud Continent did not mention the Greenwave Han Mansion, based on the message Tian left behind in the voice transmission Jade Slip, Kumi realized his daughter-in-law, Li Fei, must be in the house of a young miss from a force in the Dao Martial Saintland called Xuanai. Not only that, but he had also heard from Kumi that the people from the Greenwave Han Mansion had left the Dao Martial Saintland from the south and were searching the vast ocean. Based on his son's message, he could faintly guess the people from the Greenwave Han Mansion must be looking for his son, Tian. This was because his son had mentioned that he had left Half Moon Island with a woman called Xuanai. Due to some circumstances, they were separated from each other. Not only that, according to Kumi's description, when the people from the Greenwave Han Mansion came to look for them, they were led by a beast tamer and a young girl. That young girl was most likely the woman called Xuanai that his son had mentioned. Putting all these together, he also realized his daughter-in-law, Li Fei, must have gone to the Greenwave Han Mansion after Half Moon Island was destroyed. Due to this reason, he had to go to the Greenwave Han Mansion to bring his daughter-in-law home. I've heard Rower mention this daughter-in-law a long time ago. Every time she mentions her, she's full of praises for her. This time, I'll finally be able to see her in person. When unravel thought about how he would be able to see the daughter-in-law he had never met before, his heart was filled with anticipation. Naturally, Tian did not know that unravel had brought Kumi to the Greenwave Han Mansion. At this moment, he was sitting quietly in his room and cultivating. Since he was in an unfamiliar environment and had to follow the Grand Elder of Drift Blaze sect to tour the Drift Blaze sect's estate tomorrow morning, he did not enter the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda to cultivate. As time went by, the sky gradually darkened. In the evening, the sky was filled with red clouds. When one looked up at the horizon, the sky looked as though it was dyed with blood. It was dazzling and eye-catching. Great young master of Situ clan, your old friend is here. Don't you want to come out and meet him? A hoarse voice that sounded like a duck's cry suddenly resonated from outside the room. It contained true energy and entered Tian's ears clearly, disturbing Tian's cultivation. At once, Tian could not help but frown. Just by listening to the voice, he could tell the visitor was not friendly. Who's there? When Tian realized the other party was here for Situ Hang, he immediately walked out of his room and happened to see Situ Hang walking out of his room with a gloomy expression. Situ Ho also walked out of the other room. Master Duan. Situ Hang's face was originally gloomy. However, when he saw Tian, he forced a smile and took the initiative to greet him. The person outside seems to be here for you, Tian said. Yes, it's the young sect leader of a seventh-rate sect that's hostile to our Situ clan. We've always had a grudge against each other. I'm sorry for disturbing you, Master Duan. I'll settle this matter immediately. I promise I won't let him disturb your peace, Master Duan. When Situ Hang reached the end of his sentence, a cold gleam flashed in the depth of his eyes. If it was only him, he would not be so angry. After all, there was a grudge between them. It was only normal for him to be angry. However, due to Tian's presence, he felt extremely guilty. He felt the other party's appearance had disturbed Tian's peace. In his eyes, Tian was like an elder. He was someone Situ Hang respected. Disturbing Duan Lingtian's peace was no different from slapping him. "I'll go with you and have a look," Duan Lingtian said again. "All right." Situ Hang did not refuse. After responding, he flew out of the mansion with Duan Lingtian and Situ Ho. At this moment, there were two people standing in the air outside the mansion. One of them was a young man who looked about the same age as Situ Hang, while the other was an old man with white hair and eyebrows. The latter had a sage-like air about him. However, unlike the old man, although the young man was dressed in brocade robes, there was a hint of roguishness in his eyes. With just a glance, Duan Lingtian could tell from the other party's arrogant attitude that he was a good-for-nothing rich kid. He did not have a good impression of such good-for-nothing rich kids. "Feng Hin, the conflict between you and me is not something that happened in just a day or two. If it was any other day, I wouldn't be so calculative. However, you've disturbed Master Duan today." Situ Hang looked at the young man in brocade robes with a fierce gleam in his eyes. He shouted in a deep voice, "You, apologize to Master Duan right now." "Master Duan?" The young man in brocade robes, Feng Hin, chuckled in the face of Situ Hang's sternness. He glanced at Situ Hang mockingly before his gaze finally landed on Duan Lingtian. "Is this the Master Duan you're talking about? Situ Hang, are you sure you're not joking? No matter how I look at him, he looks like a brat who's not even older than you. You actually respect him as if he's your father. Don't tell me you want to acknowledge him as your father? I can't believe the great young master of Situ clan has such a hobby. Ha 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 ha." When Feng Hin reached the end of his sentence, he began to laugh brazenly. It had to be said that his words were extremely vicious and did not give him the slightest bit of face. "Feng Hin, you're seeking death." When Situ Hang heard Feng Hin's words, he could no longer hold himself back, no matter how good his temper was. After he shouted in a deep voice, the true energy in his body surged as he was about to attack Feng Hin. When Feng Hin saw the enraged Situ Hang, a gleam flashed in his eyes as though he had succeeded in his scheme. Although the gleam disappeared in a flash, Duan Lingtian still caught it clearly. When he saw this, he immediately took a step forward and stood in front of Situ Hang to stop him from attacking. When Feng Hin saw Duan Lingtian blocking Situ Hang, he could not help but frown. Soon after, he relaxed and continued to mock. "Situ Hang, are you planning to hide behind your father for the rest of your life?" Due to Duan Lingtian's obstruction, Situ Hang had calmed down a little. However, when he heard Feng Hin's words, he could not help but be enraged. "You keep calling me father. It seems like you really lack a father." Duan Lingtian glanced at Feng Hin nonchalantly as he said, "Who do you think you are?" Feng Hin's face darkened, and he wanted to say, "What the hell are you?" However, before he could say the word, Situ Hang shuddered, as though he had just received some instructions. "Like setting off firecrackers," he quickly said. "Son, let's hear you say Shig." "She." The word "she" that was at the tip of Feng Hin's tongue also blurted out in a timely manner. "Son, you're so obedient." Situ Hang smiled. His smile was extremely bright. When Situ Hang saw Feng Hin's flushed face and bloodshot eyes, he continued to say, "Feng Hin, no, son, listen to me and apologize to Master Duan right now." At this moment, Situ Hang was overjoyed. How did he not realize that Master Duan had such a side to him? Earlier, it was because of Duan Lingtian's reminder that he hastily said something like a firecracker to trick Feng Hin. Feng Hin had also successfully fallen into his trap. "Situ Hang, you're seeking death." Chapter 1587. Paramount Saint Rudiment Stage. Horror dawned on Situ Hang when he sensed the fierce aura within a 100-meter radius. Although he was only a Perfection Saint Rudiment Stage martial cultivator, he could clearly sense the aura of a territory. The True Energy Consolidated Territory was a technique of a Paramount Saint Rudiment Stage powerhouse. It did not cross his mind that his old rival had broken through to the Paramount Saint Rudiment Stage before him. Recalling the previous scene, Yang Kai secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Feng Hin must have deliberately mocked him to force him to make a move so he could crush him with his strength at the Paramount Saint Rudiment Stage. When Feng Hin was still at the perfection Saint Rudiment stage, he was evenly matched with him. Now that Feng Hin had broken through to the paramount Saint Rudiment stage, he knew he was no match for him. The moment he thought of this, he could not help but sigh in relief. Fortunately, Master Duan had reminded him. Otherwise, he would have been humiliated. Situ Hang, you're seeking death. At the same time, Feng Hin, who had shouted, could no longer hold himself back and attacked Situ Hang. Situ Hang had humiliated him, causing him to forget his original intention and take the initiative to attack Situ Hang first. Situ Ho, who was standing at the side, frowned when he saw Feng Hin's paramount Saint Rudiment stage cultivation base was about to attack Situ Hang. Just when he wanted to help, the white-haired old man with white eyebrows behind Feng Hin vaguely locked his aura on him. He did not dare to act recklessly. Situ Ho, let the juniors settle their own matters, the white-haired old man said indifferently. Situ Ho nodded. Humph. Although Situ Ho was not afraid of the white-haired old man, he knew many people were watching him. It was impossible for him to help Situ Hang. However, he was not worried at all. He believed Duan Lingtian would not just stand by and watch. Just as Situ Ho had expected, Duan Lingtian made his move when Feng Hin's territory swept over to suppress Situ Hang. Duan Lingtian did not make any move, but the air within a 100-meter radius trembled again. A fiercer aura suddenly appeared, accompanied by tens of thousands of solidified sword rays. Tens of thousands of sword rays soared in the air, emitting waves of sharp aura. Each sword ray seemed to be able to tear everything apart. Myriad sword domain. The tens of thousands of sword rays that appeared were naturally Duan Lingtian's territory that he had hurriedly cast. As soon as it appeared, it killed Feng Hin's territory before it was fully formed. Under his 10,000 swords territory, Feng Hin's territory was shattered and no longer existed. Of course, the reason Feng Hin was able to destroy Feng Hin's territory so easily was because he had just broken through to the paramount Saint Rudiment stage not long ago and was not familiar with controlling his territory. Stop! The white-browed elder had not expected Duan Lingtian to make a move. After all, he had already said that this was a matter between the younger generation. Although Duan Lingtian appeared to be very young, since he was the interim advisor of Situ clan and was even respected by the clan leader of Situ clan, Duan Lingtian's actual age must be very old. Duan Lingtian was not much younger than Duan Lingtian. Initially, he thought the interim advisor of the Situ clan would respect his status and would not attack a junior. However, he did not expect the interim advisor of Situ clan would attack Feng Hin directly. He did not show any mercy and only cast his territory to destroy Feng Hin's territory. The white-browed elder was shocked by Duan Lingtian's territory since he had never seen such a terrifying territory before. When the 10,000 swords appeared, it gave off a strong sense of oppression. However, Duan Lingtian's actions infuriated him. However, just as the white-browed elder was about to intervene, it was Situ Ho's turn to stop him. Old man Ian, didn't you say earlier that we'll let the juniors settle their own matters? Are you going back on your word? Situ Ho sneered when he reached the end of his sentence. However, he was secretly delighted. He felt the other party was digging a hole for him to jump into. Situ Ho, how dare you call him a junior? He's the interim advisor of Situ clan, and his cultivation base is at the imminent saint stage. I'm afraid he's as old as the clan leader of Situ clan, right? The white-browed elder smirked. You're wrong. Although Master Duan is the interim advisor of Situ clan and an imminent saint stage martial cultivator, he's younger than Little Hang. Situ Ho said nonchalantly. Junior? Speaking of which, the interim advisor of Situ clan was the youngest among the people present. Younger than Situ Hang? Naturally, the white-browed elder knew who Situ Ho was referring to. It was none other than Situ Hang. He did not believe it when he heard the interim advisor of Situ clan was younger than Situ Hang. In order to verify, he cast the spiritual secret tactic and extended his divine consciousness to check Duan Lingtian's age. Soon after, he found out through his divine consciousness that the interim advisor of Situ clan was only 36 years old. 36 years old. The white-browed elder was completely stunned when he checked Duan Lingtian's age. A 36-year-old who had a cultivation base at the imminent saint stage? With such innate talent, Even if he was not comparable to Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect, he was not too far off. However, the moment he thought about how even Situ Hao, the clan leader of Situ clan, respected Duan Ling Tian, he found it ridiculous. The clan leader of a 7th-rate clan in Windfall Nation actually respected a 36-year-old young man. How many people would believe this if they heard about it? Initially, although Duan Ling Tian had destroyed Feng Hin's territory, he did not plan to do this to Feng Hin. After all, Feng Hin was from a 7th-rate sect that was not any weaker than Situ clan. Although his current strength was not bad, he was not arrogant enough to think he could fight with a 7th-rate sect. Due to this reason, he was tactful when he made his move. However, when he sensed that the white-browed elder's spiritual consciousness had swept over and was unscrupulously probing him, anger rose from the bottom of his heart. Subsequently, he did not hold back and severely injured Feng Hin with a flip of his palm. The heavily injured Feng Hin cried out in pain before he was sent flying like an arrow that was shot out from a bow. After flying for a distance, there was no longer any sound coming from him. Young sect leader. The white-browed elder's expression changed when he saw Feng Hin was sent flying by Duan Ling Tian. His aura had become extremely weak, as though he would die at any time. He quickly chased after him and caught him. When the white-browed elder discovered there were not many complete bones in Feng Hin's body, his face was instantly covered with a layer of frost. He looked at Duan Ling Tian with killing intent in his eyes. How dare you be so ruthless to my young sect leader? Even if you're the interim advisor of Situ clan, our Skyrex sect won't let you go. Skyrex sect? How awe-inspiring. I'd like to see what kind of technique your Skyrex sect has. If you want to deal with Master Duan, you'll have to go through me first. Situ Hang was enraged when he saw the white-browed elder dared to threaten Duan Ling Tian. He flew out and stood in front of Duan Ling Tian, shielding him behind him as he said coldly, "Humph." The white-browed elder did not expect Situ Hang to protect Duan Ling Tian so brainlessly. His expression turned grave immediately. After he snorted coldly, he left in a hurry to treat his young sect leader's injuries. Although Duan Ling Tian did not take the white-browed elder's threat to heart, Situ Hang's protection still warmed his heart. Master Duan, you don't have to take Bai's words to heart. He's just talking nonsense. Even if the Skyrex sect wants to seek revenge from you, they'll have to go through me and my father first. Situ Hang turned around. The anger on his face had disappeared and was replaced by a smile. Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. I can't believe Feng Hin from the Skyrex sect has broken through to the Paramount Saint Rudiment stage before you, little Hang. At this moment, Situ Ho sighed emotionally. I find it strange as well. Feng Hin's strength has always been on par with mine. Even the progress in his cultivation base has always been on par with mine. Currently, I'm still quite a distance away from breaking through to the Paramount Saint Rudiment stage, but he's already made a breakthrough before me. Situ Hang said with a frown. Perhaps he had a fortuitous encounter. Situ Ho said. Then, he's really a dog. *T lucky? Situ Hang snorted. The arrival of the two people from the Skyrex sect was just a small interlude to Duan Ling Tian and the other two. However, to the two people from the Skyrex sect, especially Feng Hin, the young sect leader of the Skyrex sect, today's experience was a great humiliation. If that interim advisor of Situ clan doesn't die, I, Feng Hin, swear I'm not a human. Although Feng Hin was injured and could not move, he still gritted his teeth and growled as he lay on the bed. His eyes were filled with hatred. This was the first time in his life that he had suffered such a great humiliation. As night fell, Duan Ruffeng and Kumi had also entered the Greenwave Han Mansions district. After a period of time, when the two of them were close to the Greenwave Han Mansion, Duan Ruffeng suddenly came to a halt. A pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. When Kumi saw his Lord Mansion Master acting like this, he was also puzzled. He did not know what had happened to cause his Lord Mansion Master to lose his composure. However, although Kumi was puzzled, he did not dare to disturb Duan Ruffeng. After a while, Duan Ruffeng looked at Kumi and said, Old Ku, please help me bring my daughter-in-law out of the Greenwave Han Mansion. Also, if it's possible, try not to interact with the people from the Greenwave Han Mansion. Just bring my daughter-in-law out. Although Kumi did not know why Duan Rufeng did this, he respected Duan Rufeng's words like an imperial edict. Yes, Lord Mansion Master. After responding, Kumi headed to the Greenwave Han Mansion's estate alone. After Kumi left, a person suddenly appeared next to Duan Rufeng. It was an old man wearing a tattered robe with patches on it. He had a head of white hair and a beard on his chin. He looked a little sloppy. He did not care about his appearance and gave people the feeling of an old beggar. Chapter 1588. Senior Prophet. Based on how Duan Rufeng addressed this old beggar was none other than the Oracle Man who was rumored to be elusive in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Perhaps even most of the martial and Dao cultivators who had only heard of the Oracle Man in the Dao Martial Saint Land did not know that the Oracle Man was actually like this. He was completely different from the sage-like the Oracle Man they had imagined. Even if the Oracle Man stood in front of them and said he was the Oracle Man, they might not be willing to believe him. However, this old man was none other than the Oracle Man. Are you curious why I didn't allow you to go to the Greenwave Han Mansion and didn't allow your people to interact with the people from the Greenwave Han Mansion? The Oracle Man asked with a faint smile as he looked at Duan Rufeng. Earlier, Duan Rufeng originally planned to bring Kumi to the Greenwave Han Mansion to reveal his identity so that he could take his daughter-in-law, Li Fei, away. However, due to the Oracle Man's voice transmission, Duan Rufeng changed his mind. This was also the reason why Kumi was puzzled by Duan Rufeng's sudden decision. This was not Duan Rufeng's original intention, but the Oracle Man's instruction. Senior, you must have your own reasons for asking me to do this, Duan Rufeng said. Actually, my reason is similar to the reason why you didn't bring him away from the Cloud Continent. Perhaps you're desperate to find him and bring him back to the Azure Cloud Mansion to nurture him. However, who knows that this isn't the most suitable path for him? His achievements are not limited to the lower province. The Oracle Man said with a smile. Not limited to the lower province? Duan Rufeng was slightly startled. It went without saying that the Oracle Man was implying that his son Duan Lingtian's potential was not limited to the lower district. All in all, your son and I have a very deep relationship, and I don't want to see him go down the wrong path. You just need to know that this is better for him. As for the Azure Cloud Mansion, no matter what, it's still his home. I have no intention of stopping him from reuniting with both of you. However, I hope that he'll be the one who finds you instead of you finding him. Understand? The Oracle Man added.
Yes.
Duan Rufeng nodded, but his heart was filled with shock. He never thought that his son's talent would be so high that even the Oracle Man thought so highly of him. Senior Heavenly Secret, you said that my son has a deep relationship with you? What is the origin of this? Duan Rufeng asked. He's Yinyu, and I'm Heavenly Secret. In the face of Duan Rufeng's question, the Oracle Man only gave a short reply. It was a short reply that only consisted of 8 words. As soon as the words left his mouth, the Oracle Man disappeared again. He vanished before Duan Rufeng's eyes, as though he had never appeared before. He's Yinyu, and I'm Heavenly Secret? What does this mean? Duan Rufeng had already experienced how elusive the Oracle Man was. Due to this reason, he was not surprised at all. It seems like Tian Er's fortuitous encounter is even more ridiculous than my encounters in the past. Even this elusive the Oracle Man took the initiative to contact me 3 times because of him. Duan Rufeng sighed emotionally. Although he was the one who met the Oracle Man the first time, now that he thought about it, it was also because the Oracle Man deliberately exposed his whereabouts that he was able to meet him. Moreover, even if he met him, if it was not for the fact that the Oracle Man was willing to divine for him, he might not have been able to hear the Oracle Man's priceless advice. At this moment, Duan Rufeng also realized that the reason he was able to meet the Oracle Man was all because of his son, Duan Lingtian. Although he did not know the relationship between the Oracle Man and his son, he did not know the relationship between them. If Duan Lingtian heard the words left behind by the Oracle Man, he would definitely be shocked. This was because after he obtained the Sovereign Heart Sword from Sword Saint Feng Qingyang, according to the words left behind by Sword Saint Feng Qingyang, he had become the only successor of the Misty Rain sect. Before him, Sword Saint Feng Qingyang was also a member of the Misty Rain sect. Naturally, Sword Saint Feng Qingyang was the previous successor of the Misty Rain sect. To a certain extent, Sword Saint Feng Qingyang could be considered as Duan Lingtian's master. He was also someone who Duan Lingtian acknowledged as his master. In fact, before this, whether it was Sima Changfeng from Cloud Continent or Feng Hui, the city governor of Mound Hill City, he had only acknowledged them as his teachers and not his master. Teacher, master. Although there was only a difference of one word, the meaning they represented was completely different. Misty Rain sect, Tianji. If someone knew or even understood the existence of the Seven Absolute sect, a top sect that existed in the distant past, these words would definitely appear in their minds when they heard these words. The first absolute, Misty Rain sect. The second absolute, Tianji. Misty Rain sect and Tianji were the first two absolutes of the Seven Absolutes sect. If the Misty Rain sect represented the strongest force of the Seven Absolute sect, the Tianji progeny represented the boundless wisdom of the Seven Absolute sect. The Fog Rain sect and the Heavenly Secret sect had joined forces. Coupled with the five absolutes, the Seven Absolute sect was invincible. In the distant era, the Seven Absolute sect was even more famous than the three most powerful sects in the Tao Martial Saint Land. For a time, the three great sects were suppressed. Naturally, the reason the Seven Absolute sect was so powerful at that time was because of the successor of the first absolute, the Misty Rain sect. The successor of the Misty Rain sect at that time was Sword Saint Feng Qingyang. During that time, Feng Qingyang was an influential figure. Perhaps, some people did not know about the Seven Absolute sect, but there was no one who did not know about the Sword Saint Feng Qingyang. Naturally, the Seven Absolute sect had been silent for too long. Due to this reason, there was no record of the Seven Absolute sect in the Azure Cloud Mansion's archives. For this reason, Duan Ruffing did not know about the existence of the Seven Absolute sect, let alone knowing that the first two absolutes of the Seven Absolute sect were the Misty Rain sect and the Tianji progeny. If he knew about this, he would definitely be able to understand the meaning behind the Oracle Man's words. Greenwave Han Mansion. In a room that was brightly lit and had a tranquil atmosphere, a beautiful woman was gently pushing the cradle. Her eyes that were as gentle as water stared at the baby who was sleeping soundly in the cradle. Her face was filled with a satisfied smile. Unknowingly, a purple figure flashed in the woman's mind, causing her expression to turn gloomy. Scoundrel, we have a child. Our child is born. Did you know? The woman muttered softly. Based on the woman's muttering, her identity was obvious. She was one of the two fiancés of Duan Lingtian, Li Fei, and Kerr. I wonder if she's safe. If she's safe, the child in her stomach should be born by now, right? Li Fei's eyes were filled with sorrow again when she thought of Kerr. She and Kerr had long been as close as sisters. Now that she had suddenly encountered a disaster, she was also very worried about her. Although the face of the baby who was sleeping soundly in the cradle could not be seen clearly, his pair of dashing eyebrows were no different from Duan Lingtian's. The space between his eyebrows was somewhat similar to Duan Lingtian's. Moreover, this was because he was still young. If he were to grow up a little more, he would definitely look more like Duan Lingtian. This was the son that Li Fei had given birth to for Duan Lingtian. Li Fei looked at the baby in the cradle. Her attention was completely focused on the space between his eyebrows, and she was momentarily dazed. Her child with him was more like him in comparison. At this moment, Li Fei was unaware that a crisis was approaching her. Young master, do you really want to do this? Although Miss Xuanai and the three little fellows have left, with Lord Qingnu around, I'm afraid you'll be discovered before you even get close to her room. A young man with a hint of hesitation between his eyebrows said to the young man in embroidered robes who was walking in front of him. The young man in embroidered robes was none other than Han Jinyan, who harbored evil intentions toward Li Fei when Li Fei had just arrived at the Greenwave Han Mansion. At the same time, he was also the grandson of the only supreme elder in the Greenwave Han Mansion. Hermph, do you think I'm as brainless as you? When Han Jinyan heard the words of the lackey following behind him, he snorted coldly and said disdainfully, Before I came here, I've already asked Uncle Pei to send Qingnu away. Now that Qingnu isn't here, isn't that little girl a piece of meat on my chopping board that I can do whatever I want to her? Unfortunately, she has already given birth to the child. Otherwise, I'd really like to have a taste of a pregnant woman. Hermph. It's all Han Shu and I's fault. How could he protect her so well? I couldn't even find a chance at all. This time, she left with the three little fellows who were in my way. God is really on my side. As Han Jinyan spoke, he led his lackey to Li Fei's room. All right, you go outside and wait. It'll be bad if someone sees us. Han Jinyan instructed his lackey before he walked toward Li Fei's room. The lackey answered and left. Meanwhile, Han Jinyan could not wait any longer as he pushed Li Fei's door open. Although Li Fei's door was closed, it was as good as nothing in front of Han Jinyan. He opened it with just a lift of his hand. Creak. The door was opened all of a sudden. Although the sound was not loud, it still woke Li Fei up. Li Fei immediately put her guard up. It's you. When she saw that it was Han Jinyan who had pushed the door open, Li Fei's expression changed slightly. She scolded him angrily. What are you doing here? Little beauty, don't you know what I'm doing here? Han Jinyan looked at the door and chuckled. His eyes were full of lust. Get lost. Li Fei continued to scold him angrily. If you don't get lost, I'll look for Senior Qingnu. Qingnu? I'm afraid Qingnu won't be back for the time being. So, don't count on her. Han Jinyan chuckled and walked toward Li Fei step by step. At this time, Li Fei knew that Han Jinyan had come with a premeditated plan. Her face turned pale, but she made up her mind. Even if she had to die, she would not let this bastard get what he wanted. However, when she thought of her newborn son, she felt a dull ache in her heart. My child, if I leave, don't blame me. Li Fei had already thought of harming herself. Even if she had to die, she would not let Han Jinyan get what he wanted. However, at this time, a voice transmission entered her ears. You're Li Fei? Is your fiancé Duan Lingtian? Along with the voice transmission, a person appeared in the room behind Han Jinyan out of thin air, but Han Jinyan did not notice him at all. Chapter 1589. You. Who are you? Upon hearing the skinny old man's words, Li Fei stared at him in a daze. For a moment, she seemed to have forgotten about Han Jinyan's existence. Little beauty, stop struggling. Do you think I won't notice if there's someone behind me? Han Jinyan chuckled. He was getting closer to Li Fei, and the lust in his eyes could not be concealed. A mere Saint Rudiment stage powerhouse wants to notice me? At this moment, an old and hoarse voice suddenly resonated in the air, causing Han Jinyan's expression to change drastically. He finally realized that Li Fei was not deliberately mystifying him. There was really someone behind him. At this moment, before he could even turn around, he saw a flash in front of his eyes before a figure appeared out of thin air. It was an old man dressed in a gray robe. He was holding a walking stick made of an unknown material in his hand. He stood in front of the cradle behind Li Fei and looked at the baby in the cradle. The baby's face was chubby and cute. With just a glance, the old man discovered that the baby's features were similar to his Lord Mansion Master's. At this moment, he could also guess who gave birth to this child with Li Fei. The young Mansion Master's child. If Lord Mansion Master finds out that he has a grandson, I wonder how happy he'll be. At this moment, looking at the child in the cradle, a rare smile appeared on Kumi's cold and skinny face. Naturally, his smile was uglier than his crying face. Kumi bent down and picked up the child. He was afraid that he would wake the child up, so his movements were very gentle. It was as if he was holding a fragile treasure. When Li Fei saw Kumi carrying her child, horror dawned on her face. However, when she saw the old man's gentle movements and the smile on his face, she did not stop him. She could tell that the old man did not have any ill intentions. However, she was still curious about how this old man knew her name and her man's name. You're not from the Greenwave Han Mansion. At this moment, Han Jinyan finally regained his senses and glared at the old man. Old man, I don't care who you are. If you know what's good for you, get lost. My grandfather is the supreme elder of the Greenwave Han Mansion. You. Noisy. Han Jinyan's voice startled the child in his arms. His eyebrows twitched slightly, as if he would be awakened at any time. The smile on Kumi's face disappeared completely. When he let out a low shout, the entire room was shrouded by a strange aura. This aura made one's hair stand on end. After a while, withered branches that looked like vines appeared out of thin air around Han Jinyin. The branches extended out like sharp swords, piercing through Han Jinyin's body before he could even finish speaking. One by one, the dead branches pierced through Han Jinyin's body. Some went through his heart, some went through his stomach, some went through his head. In short, the scene was extremely bloody. However, although this scene was bloody, it did not frighten Li Fei. After all, Li Fei had seen many similar scenes along the way. Especially when she was at Half Moon Island previously, the scene of purgatory in the human world had already tempered her heart. Not only that, but when Li Fei saw Han Jinyin dying just like that, a sense of satisfaction rose in her heart. After all, she had already thought of self-detonating earlier. Even if she died, she would not let Han Jinyin have his way. At that moment, her heart was filled with reluctance. She was reluctant to part with her man, Duan Tian, and she was reluctant to part with her newborn child. "Young madam, come with me. Lord Mansion Master is waiting for us outside." Kumi carried Li Fei's child and told Li Fei, You called me young madam?" Upon hearing Kumi's words, Li Fei was stunned. "Your fiancé is my young mansion master. Naturally, you're the young madam." The moment Kumi's words left his mouth, he did not wait for Li Fei's reply. With a raise of his hand, an invisible force extended out and forcibly brought Li Fei out of the room and out of the Green Wave Han mansion. After Li Fei was brought away, she was still in a daze. Since when did her man become the young mansion master? Soon after, under Kumi's lead, Li Fei saw Duan Rufeng. When Li Fei saw this young man who bore a resemblance to her man, there was no need for her to say anything. She already knew who he was. This was because she had heard her man mention him before. Your father?" Li Fei stared at Duan Rufeng in a daze for a long time before she finally called out, "Father." After she finished calling out to him, her peerless face flushed red. "You're Feier, right? You're really as outstanding as Rower said. This child is." When Duan Rufeng saw Li Fei, his eyes lit up as well. He secretly praised his son's good taste. However, he soon noticed the child in Kumi's arms. Since he did not take a good look at the child, he did not notice that the child bore a 50% to 60% resemblance to his son, Duan Lingtian, and him as well. "This is the child of me and him," Li Fei said with a blush on her face. "What?" Although Duan Rufeng had already guessed it, he was overjoyed when he heard Li Fei's confirmation. He immediately took the child from Kumi's arms. Instead of saying that he took the child, it was no different from snatching the child. As Duan Rufeng carried the child and looked at the child's expression, a bright smile appeared on his face. He was grinning from ear to ear. He had become a grandfather. Duan Rufeng did not know when his eyes began to tear up. "Father, you." At this moment, Li Fei finally remembered the strength displayed by the old man who had brought her out. Not only that, but the old man had also said that her man was the young mansion master. She looked at Duan Rufeng and Kumi with a puzzled expression on her face. As far as she knew, a force that could be called a mansion in the Dao Martial Saintland was at least a fifth-rate force like the Green Wave Han Mansion, or even stronger. However, Duan Rufeng's mind was completely focused on the grandson in his arms. He did not hear Li Fei's words at all. However, Kumi, who was standing at the side, quickly explained to her, "Young madam, Lord Mansion Master is the Mansion Master of Azure Cloud Mansion. The Azure Cloud Mansion is also a first-rate force in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saintland. It's not something the Green Wave Han Mansion can compare to. Even in the entire Dao Martial Saintland, our Azure Cloud Mansion is also a quasi-third-rate force." A quasi-third-rate force. Upon hearing Kumi's words, Li Fei's heart could not help but jolt. During the period when she stayed in the Green Wave Han Mansion, due to the fact that she had nothing to do, she had read many files that introduced the Dao Martial Saintland in the Green Wave Han Mansion. Among them, there was a mention of a quasi-third-rate force. Although a quasi-third-rate force was essentially a fourth-rate force, it was called a quasi-third-rate force because its strength was far more powerful than an ordinary fourth-rate force. A quasi-third-rate force could be considered as a first-rate force in the WCI subterranean. In the files that Li Fei had read, There were introductions to the upper province and lower province of the Dao Martial Saintland. She also knew that the Dao Martial Saintland had been divided into two many years ago. The upper province was completely independent, and people from the upper province rarely appeared in the lower province. The people from the upper province would usually not interfere in the matters of the lower province. Now that she found out that her man's father was actually the mansion master of a quasi-third-rate force in the WCI subterranean, how could she not be shocked? Father. After learning about Duan Rufing's identity, Li Fei immediately kneeled in the air. Feier, what are you doing? Upon seeing this, horror dawned on Duan Rufing's face. Father, Sister Kerr is currently missing. Please help me look for her. Li Fei did not know when her tears started to fall like rain. Previously, after she fled from Half Moon Island, she finally came to the Greenwave Han Mansion after a series of twists and turns. However, due to her body, she could not go back to look for Kerr. Because of her, Han Shu and I, Little Black, Little White, and Little Gold did not leave either. They stayed by her side until her child was born. Only then did Han Shu and I bring the three little fellows back to Half Moon Island. However, they had yet to return until now. Sigh. Both of you are really close. Upon hearing Li Fei's words, Duan Rufing sighed. At the same time, with a raise of his hand, an invisible force extended out and lifted Li Fei up. Feier, Kerr is fine now. Don't worry. Sister Kerr is fine? Upon hearing Duan Rufing's words, Li Fei's eyes lit up. Father, is this true? It's true. Duan Rufing nodded. He then told her about how he had returned to Cloud Continent and discovered the voice transmission jade slip that Duan Lingtian had left for Li Fei. He also told her about the contents of the voice transmission jade slip. Although Kerr was taken away by that woman from Zoroastrianism, since that woman claimed to be Kerr's twin sister, she shouldn't harm her. I've never heard Kerr mention that she has a twin sister. Upon hearing this, Li Fei was also a little surprised. Perhaps even Kerr doesn't know her true identity. Duan Rufing sighed. Then, he told her everything he had learned, including the fact that Kerr might be the saint girl of Zoroastrianism. Father, don't tell me even you can't bring Sister Kerr back from Zoroastrianism? Li Fei asked. Zoroastrianism is a first-rate force even in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland. There are 3 religions and 9 sects in the Dao Martial Saintland. Zoroastrianism is one of the 3 religions. As for the 9 sects, it refers to all the forces in the upper and lower province of the Dao Martial Saintland. In the upper province, there are many first-rate forces, quasi-first-rate forces, second-rate forces, quasi-second-rate forces, and third-rate forces. However, even the ordinary first-rate forces in the upper province can't compare to Zoroastrianism. Moreover, my Azure Cloud Mansion is only a top-rate force in the WCI subterranean. Duan Rufing's words were laced with helplessness. If Zoroastrianism was only a force in the lower province, he would have killed his way there and snatched his daughter-in-law Kerr back. Zoroastrianism is actually so powerful? How did Sister Kerr get involved with it? What's going to happen to Sister Kerr now that she's been taken away by the people from Zoroastrianism? What about the child in her stomach? Li Fei's delicate face was filled with worry. What? Kerr is pregnant as well? Chapter 1590. Duan Rufing's expression turned grave when he found out that Kerr was pregnant as well. Initially, he should be happy that he had 2 grandchildren. However, the problem was he could only confirm that one of his grandchildren was safe. His other grandson's fate was unknown. According to the message left by his son, Duan Lingtian, Kerr was brought away by her twin sister. Moreover, her twin sister treated her very well. For this reason, it seemed like Kerr was safe. However, the child in Kerr's stomach was different. If Kerr is really the saint of Zoroastrianism, if the people from Zoroastrianism find out she's pregnant, not only will they kill her, but they'll also kill the child in her stomach. This was what Duan Rufing was most worried about. Although he did not know much about Zoroastrianism, he knew the saint of Zoroastrianism was not allowed to have too much contact with men, let alone get pregnant. Although Kerr's twin sister is a member of Zoroastrianism, I don't think she'll harm her sister. However, in order to protect Kerr, she might choose to get rid of the child in Kerr's stomach. The moment Duan Ruffing thought about this, he became even more worried. That was his grandson. Soon after, Duan Rufeng took a deep breath and calmed down his excited mood. He knew it was useless for him to be anxious now, since this was not something he could control. At this moment, he only hoped that Kerr would be able to give birth to the child safely. Naturally, if it was related to Kerr's safety, he would rather have Kerr survive. He believed even his son, Duan Lingtian, would think the same way. Fair, follow me back to the Azure Cloud Mansion first. Your Aunt Ro. No, I should call you Mother now. Your mother has been talking about you for a long time. If she sees you, she will be very happy. Duan Ruffing looked at Li Fei and said, Father, bad. Did you find him? Li Fei originally wanted to call Duan Ling Tian a scoundrel. After all, that was what she usually called him. However, in front of Duan Rufeng, she decided to call him a scoundrel. It's a little complicated. Let's talk about it on the way back. Duan Ruffing said. Li Fei nodded obediently. Then, she seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Duan Ruffeng and said, Father, if I leave like this, Xuan I will definitely be very worried when she comes back. Kumi, make another trip to the Greenwave Han Mansion. Duan Ruffing looked at Kumi and said. Of course, this was only said in front of Li Fei. He secretly transmitted his voice to Kumi and instructed him what he should say and what he should not say. Since this matter concerned his son's future, he did not want to go against the Oracle man's wishes. Yes, Lord Mansion Master. Kumi responded and left, returning to the Greenwave Han Mansion. Let's make a move first. At this moment, Duan Ruffing also called out to Li Fei. Carrying his grandson, he brought Li Fei along with him in the direction of the Azure Cloud Mansion with an invisible force. Very soon, Kumi returned to the Greenwave Han Mansion's vast estate. He hovered in the air. When he opened his mouth, his voice that was filled with rich true origin swept out like a violent storm and spread throughout the entire Greenwave Han Mansion's estate. Tell Miss Xuanai that my young madam and her son have followed me home. These were Kumi's original words. When Kumi's voice reverberated throughout the entire Greenwave Han Mansion's estate, he disappeared from the sky above the Greenwave Han Mansion again. Even when the Greenwave Han Mansion's powerhouses extended their divine consciousness, they did not manage to find him in time. However, it was destined that the Greenwave Han Mansion would not be peaceful tonight. As the group of Greenwave Han Mansion's powerhouses were awakened by Kumi's voice, the lackey by Han Jin Yin's side who was guarding outside the courtyard that Han Xuanai asked Qing Nu to arrange for Li Fei also heard the voice from the sky. Mother and son? Upon hearing the voice, the lackey by Han Jin Yin's side immediately frowned. They know Miss Xuanai, and their mother and son as well. Don't you mean the woman inside and her newborn son? Shouldn't she be spending the night with young master? The moment this thought appeared in his mind, the lackey vaguely felt that something was amiss. He quickly entered the courtyard and came to the door of the room that Li Fei stayed in previously. Young master, young master. The lackey stood outside the door and called out a few times. However, even after a long time had passed, there was no response at all. At once, horror dawned on his face. After taking a deep breath, he tried to push the door open. However, he realized that the door was unlatched and opened with just a push. As the door opened, the moonlight shone into the room. The horrifying scene inside was completely displayed before his eyes. A young man dressed in brocade was lying on the ground, and his entire body was stained with blood. There were more than 10 bloody holes on his body, and his appearance could no longer be distinguished. However, as a lackey who had followed Han Jinyan for many years, he knew him very well. In just a blink of an eye, he was certain that this young man in brocade was his young master, Han Jinyan. Young master. When the lackey saw this, he could not help but cry out in shock. After he cried out in shock, a ghostly figure appeared behind him and asked in a cold voice, "Why are you here?" Lord Qing Nu, young master. This person was none other than Qing Nu, who had just rushed back. When she heard the voice from the sky, the first thought that flashed in her mind was that this person had taken Li Fei and her son away. For this reason, she had rushed back as soon as she could. However, although she had rushed back, she discovered that Han Jin Yin's lackey had appeared outside Li Fei's room. Horror dawned on her immediately, and she quickly rushed into the room. After entering the room, she discovered Han Jinyan's body. Although Han Jinyan's appearance was no longer recognizable, she could still recognize the clothes he was wearing. Her face instantly darkened when she realized the reason why Han Jinyan had appeared here. Her eyes were filled with killing intent as she looked at Han Jinyan. After realizing that Han Jinyan was dead, she looked at the lackey who was standing at the door and asked in a deep voice, "What happened here?" I don't know." The lackey shook his head. Indeed, he did not know anything. "Why are you here? Why is he here?" Qing Nu asked with a gloomy expression. Under Qing Nu's stern gaze and the fact that Han Jinyan was dead, the lackey did not dare to conceal anything and told her the truth. He told her everything, including how he had lured Qing Nu away. He only has himself to blame. After hearing the whole story, this was the first thought that came to Qing Nu's mind. Regardless of who killed Han Jinyan, she felt that Han Jinyan deserved it. However, a moment later, confusion rose in her heart. He called Li Fei young madam, and Li Fei's man is Duan Lingtian. I heard from the young miss that Duan Lingtian's father seems to be a powerhouse from the Dao Martial Saint land as well. Don't tell me it's his men who came to take Li Fei and her son away? The more Qing Nu thought about it, the more certain she became. At the same time, she felt more at ease. If this was the case, it would be easier for her to explain to the young Mississippi Nyener. Not long after the Green Wave Han mansion fell into silence again due to the commotion caused by the voice that was transmitted from the sky. A furious roar that was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples caused the entire Green Wave Han mansion to fall into an uproar again. He found out. When Qing Nu heard the roar, she smiled wryly. She could tell that it was the voice of the Supreme Elder of their Green Wave Han mansion. That Supreme Elder was Han Jinyan's grandfather. Han Jinyan was also his only grandson. Based on his furious roar, it was obvious he had found out about Han Jinyan's death as well. To be more precise, the Supreme Elder had found out that Han Jinyan's soul pearl had shattered. Qing Nu glanced at the room and did not see any mess. She could roughly guess what had happened. In other words, when Han Jinyan was plotting something, Duan Lingtian's father's men arrived and killed Han Jinyan before taking away Li Fei and her son? The moment Qing Nu thought of this, she sighed in relief. If anything happened to Li Fei, Han Shu and I would not forgive her. She would not forgive herself as well. It was fortunate that Li Fei was fine. As for Han Jinyan's death, she did not take it to heart. This was because she had always disliked Han Jinyan. If it was not for the fact that his grandfather was the Supreme Elder of the Green Wave Han mansion, perhaps she would have killed him long ago. It's the Supreme Elder. When Han Jinyan's lackey outside the room heard the angry roar that shook the entire Green Wave Han mansion, his face instantly turned pale. He could imagine that the Supreme Elder would not let him go if he found out that something had happened to his grandson. After all, he was Han Jinyan's subordinate. Even if he was not an accomplice, he was still Han Jinyan's subordinate. Now that Han Jinyan was dead and he was still alive, what would the Supreme Elder think? The moment he thought of this, his heart was filled with despair. Lord Qing Nu, you must save me. This has nothing to do with me. I've also advised young master not to provoke Miss Xuanai's guests, but he refused to listen. The lackey knelt in front of Qing Nu and said in a panic, I can't help you with this matter. When the Supreme Elder comes, just tell him the truth, Qing Nu said indifferently. Her eyes gleamed coldly. As she spoke, a cold light flashed across her eyes. If you dare to lie in front of the Supreme Elder, even if the Supreme Elder lets you go, I won't let you go. Qing Nu's words frightened the lackey. He lowered his head and said, Lord Qing Nu, I understand. I understand. Once the Supreme Elder of Green Wave Han Mansion was enraged, the impact would naturally be extraordinary. Soon after, in the room that Li Fei had stayed in, not only Qing Nu and Han Jinyan's lackey, but the Supreme Elder of Green Wave Han Mansion, as well as the left and right guardians of Green Wave Han Mansion, had also arrived. Naturally, it was also because the mansion master of Green Wave Han Mansion had gone out recently. Otherwise, he would definitely be present at this moment. Nien. Chapter 1591. What's going on? How did Nien die here? Han Xian, the Supreme Elder of Green Wave Han Mansion, asked in a deep voice as he looked at Han Jin Yin's lackey who was kneeling at the side. Han Jin Yin's lackey was so frightened by Han Xian's appearance that his body began to tremble. He did not dare to tell the truth. However, when he thought of Qing Nu's threat, he told Han Jin Yin everything that had happened. First, he told them about how Han Jin Yin had an ulterior motive toward Han Xuanai's guest, Li Fei. Then, he told them about how Han Jin Yin had asked someone to help him cheat Qing Nu away. Then, he told them about what happened after that. Upon hearing Han Jin Yin's lackey's words, the Green Wave Han Mansion's left and right guardians who were standing at the side had a strange expression on their faces. If this was really the case, then Han Jin Yin was really digging his own grave. Perhaps, even Han Jin Yin did not expect that woman to be protected by a powerhouse. Otherwise, he would not have been so bold. Han Xian's face turned pale. Naturally, he knew his grandson's character very well. However, since he was his only grandson, he had always doted on him and had never blamed him for these things. However, it seemed like it was his grandson's lecherous behavior that had caused him to be doomed eternally. Qing Nu, that Li Fei is Xuanai's guest. Do you know anything about her background? Han Xian asked in a deep voice as he looked at Qing Nu, Supreme Elder. I know a little about her background. However, I don't know who the person who took her away is. I'm not the only one who doesn't know. Even young Miss doesn't know about it, Qing Nu said. Yes. The person who took her away called her young madam. You should know who her man is, right? Han Xian asked in a deep voice. Her man is called Duan Lingtian. He's from Cloud Continent, and he once mentioned that his father is in the Dao Martial Saint Land. I only learned about this from young Mississippi. As for the details, even young Miss doesn't know about it. Qing Nu continued to say, Duan Lingtian? Upon hearing this, Han Xian's eyes gleamed sharply. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, he came to his senses. He picked up his grandson Han Jin Yin's body and left. Guardians, please help me keep this matter a secret. I don't want my grandson to be cursed after his death. Han Xian added as they were leaving. When the left and right guardians of the Green Wave Han Mansion heard this, they responded, indicating that they would not spread this matter out. Bang! Along with a soft sound, a bloody hole appeared between the eyebrows of Han Jin Yin's henchman who was kneeling on the ground. He fell to the ground and was no longer breathing. It was just as he had thought. Han Xian had no intention of letting him go. In the end, this matter did not spread in the Green Wave Han Mansion. After all, if it did, everyone would think that Han Jin Yin deserved to die. After all, Han Jin Yin was the one who started it. If Han Jin Yin had not done that, he would not have ended up like this. Naturally, Han Xuanai did not know what had happened in the Green Wave Han Mansion. At this moment, she was bringing the three little fellows, Little Gold, Little Black, and Little White, to where Half Moon Island used to be. When they discovered that Half Moon Island no longer existed, they were stunned. Half Moon Island is actually gone? Han Xuanai's expression was grave. That Diju from the dragons is really capable of doing anything. Isn't he afraid of retribution? Dragons have always been overbearing. Moreover, that Diju is a 5-clawed golden dragon. He's the royal family among dragons. There was another person who was traveling with Han Xuanai and the other three. It was a middle-aged man standing on the back of a gigantic wild beast. He was none other than Mui, Han Xuanai's father. The mansion master of Green Wave Han Mansion regarded him as a brother. In the Green Wave Han Mansion, there were 3 people with the strongest strength. Other than the Supreme Elder, there was the mansion master of Green Wave Han Mansion and this powerful beast tamer, Mui. Mui was also the father of Han Xuanai's little sister, Mu Shui. When Little Gold, Little Black, and Little White discovered that Half Moon Island no longer existed, their eyes turned red as well. They had stayed on Half Moon Island for a long time, so it was only natural that they had deep feelings for it. Moreover, there were many people they cared about on Half Moon Island. Sister Kerr. Little White's eyes were red as tears welled up in her eyes. When Little Gold and Little Black thought of Kerr, they felt sad as well. Let's go back to Cloud Continent to have a look. Maybe Brother Ling Tian has already come back. Han Xuanai suggested. For a time, the group of 5 continued to travel south to Cloud Continent. Whether it was what happened in the Green Wave Han Mansion or Han Xuanai and the three little fellows returning to Cloud Continent. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not know about it. At this moment, he was sitting quietly in his room, waiting for the arrival of the next day. When the dawn of the second day shrouded the land, a new day had also arrived. Early in the morning, the Grand Elder of Drift Blaze sect came to visit. He brought along Duan Lingtian, Little White, and the other two, as well as the people from various forces who came to join in the fun, to wander around the Drift Blaze sect's estate. Along the way, Duan Lingtian had unknowingly become the center of attention. Many gazes landed on him, one after another. These gazes were filled with doubt, admiration, and disdain. In short, not many people from the various forces present on the scene thought he was a match for Lady Feng from the Greenwave Han Mansion. However, although the people from various forces looked down on Duan Lingtian, they did not take the initiative to provoke him like the people from Skyrex sect did. After a day of peace, everything was peaceful. Looks like Feng Hin and Old Man Ian from Skyrex sect have already left. How satisfying, Situ Heng said with a smile. He did not see the two people from Skyrex sect when he returned in the evening. Upon hearing Situ Heng's words, Duan Lingtian could not help but snicker secretly. He was the one who injured Feng Hin yesterday, so he knew very well how serious his injuries were. Currently, he was most likely still recuperating in one of the guest rooms in Drift Blaze sect. However, Feng Hin would not have the chance to see the battle between him and Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect tomorrow, since he could not get out of bed at all. Master Duan, tomorrow is the day of the battle between you and Lady Feng. Please rest early and recharge your energy. We won't disturb you any longer. After returning to the mansion that the Drift Blaze sect had arranged for them, Situ Heng and Situ Ho bade farewell to Duan Lingtian before returning to their respective rooms to await the arrival of the next day. Although they did not think Duan Lingtian would be a match for Lady Feng, they did not think Duan Lingtian would be a match for her. However, deep in their hearts, they still hoped that Duan Lingtian would be able to give them a surprise. If Duan Lingtian won the battle tomorrow, not only would his name be known in the entire Windfall Nation, but even their Situ clan would benefit from it as well. After all, Duan Lingtian was the interim advisor of their Situ clan. At that time, when Duan Lingtian's name spread to the Southern Ridge Yuan Mansion, their Situ clan's name would definitely appear in the Southern Ridge Yuan Mansion as well. This was not an honor that any seventh-rate force in Windfall Nation could enjoy. This night, Duan Lingtian did not sit quietly in his room like he did last night. Instead, he entered the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to temper his cultivation base. One night outside was 2.5 days inside the third level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. It was more than enough for Duan Lingtian to cultivate for a while. Duan Lingtian did not dare to be careless when facing Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect. When Duan Lingtian entered the third level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to cultivate, in the forbidden area of the Drift Blaze sect, near the crater of an active volcano, a lady in fiery red robes was sitting cross-legged in the air. The lady was dressed in fiery red and looked like a fire spirit. She seemed to be one with the magma that was erupting from time to time. The lady had a peerless appearance that could topple a nation. When she was cultivating, even the lava that was erupting from the crater seemed to lean toward her as though she had some sort of magical power. Nobody knew when, but a scorching fiery red flame rose around the lady's body. It enveloped her completely, but it did not burn her at all. All of a sudden, the lady opened her eyes. There seemed to be a flash of fire in her eyes. In the next instant, she flew toward the crater of the erupting volcano. She bathed in the lava and became one with the lava. If someone saw this, they would definitely cry out in shock. This was no different from committing suicide. However, as the magma continued to erupt from the crater, one could see that the woman bathed in the magma was not only not burned to ashes by the magma, but she even sat cross-legged in the magma and continued to cultivate. As time passed by, one could vaguely see little fiery red lights extending from the lava. They approached the lady and merged with her in the end. Tian Wu's body seems to be born from my blazing phoenix progeny's mental cultivation method. Her current progress is more than double of mine. When the red-clad lady who looked like a fire spirit bathed in the lava and cultivated, a beautiful lady appeared in the air not far away. She stared at the lady who was bathed in the lava and muttered to herself. Although it was late at night, it was still as bright as day due to the continuous eruption of the volcano's lava. If there were other people from Drift Blaze sect here, they would be able to recognize this beautiful lady as Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. Tian Wu will have a battle with the interim advisor from Situ clan tomorrow, based on what the Grand Elder said. Although the interim advisor from Situ clan looks young, he's not a simple person. When Ziyun recalled the Grand Elder's report tonight, she muttered to herself, I hope he'll be a qualified whetstone. A night passed by very quickly. As the sun shrouded the land again, the Drift Blaze sect became lively again. One by one, the Drift Blaze sect's disciples left their cultivation place. Chapter 1592. The battle between the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, and the Drift Blaze sect's disciple, Lady Feng, was scheduled to take place at the vast area in the east of the Drift Blaze sect's estate. After all, at their cultivation base, there was no need for a specific arena. Early in the morning, the vast area in the east of the Drift Blaze sect's estate was already filled with people. Most of these people were Drift Blaze sect's disciples, and some of them were Drift Blaze sect's elders as well. Apart from the Drift Blaze sect's disciples and elders, the people from other forces who came to join in the fun had also arrived. Naturally, there were also some people who did not come. For example, Feng Hin, the young sect leader of Skyrek sect, was not present. Naturally, he was not present because he was still lying in bed due to his heavy injuries. He would not be able to come even if he wanted to. However, the old man with the surname Een who was by Feng Hin's side had come. This old man with the surname Een was a Saint stage powerhouse whose strength was not inferior to Situ Ho from Situ clan. The people from Situ clan are here. Suddenly, someone shouted. Everyone's eyes immediately shifted to the west where the Drift Blaze sect's estate was located. Over there, 3 figures were heading over together. That's the great young master of Situ clan, Situ Hang. The supreme elder of Situ clan, Situ Ho, is also a Saint stage powerhouse. The purple-clad young man walking in the middle must be the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan. The group of Drift Blaze sect's disciples discussed among themselves. Their eyes were filled with doubt and disdain as they looked at the purple-clad figure in the distance. This was the person who wanted to challenge their Drift Blaze sect's Lady Feng, a powerhouse at the peak of the Saint Rudiment stage who was ranked 23rd in the Heaven ranking. Hermph. He looks quite young, but his actual age might already be in his 70s or 80s. How can he be compared to our Drift Blaze sect's Lady Feng? He's really overestimating himself. If we don't teach some people a lesson at a critical moment, they won't know why flowers are so red. I'd like to see his expression when he's defeated by Lady Feng. Based on the Drift Blaze sect's disciples' words, it was obvious they did not think Duan Lingtian would win. Apart from the fact that Duan Lingtian was the interim advisor of Situ clan who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, it was mostly because they were confident in their Drift Blaze sect's Lady Feng. The group of Drift Blaze sect's disciples whispered among themselves. Although their voices were not loud, Duan Lingtian, who had opened up 99 Saint veins, had an extremely good hearing. Naturally, he heard every single word that was said. However, he did not care about this. In fact, he had already guessed that this would happen. Let alone the Drift Blaze sect's disciples, even Situ Hang and Situ Ho, who were following closely behind Duan Lingtian, could tell that they did not have any confidence in him, even though they did not say it out loud. Duan Lingtian did not bother to explain further because he knew it would be pointless if he tried to explain further. If he wanted to change their opinion of him, there was only one way for him to do so, and that was to defeat Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect and replace her on the Heaven ranking. Duan Lingtian was very confident about this. Currently, his cultivation base had already broken through to the Paramount Saint Rudiment stage. With the help of the Supreme Sword Dao mental cultivation method, the Sovereign Heart Sword, he had even mastered the 10,000 Swords territory. After a period of research, he discovered how powerful the 10,000 Swords territory was. It was not something an ordinary territory could compare to. At the very least, among the territories that he had seen so far, none of them could be compared to the 10,000 Swords territory. Naturally, Even without the advantage in terms of territory, Duan Lingtian was not afraid of any martial or Dao cultivators below the saint stage. Put aside the fact that he could consolidate the divine dragon phenomenon. Even without the phenomenon, his body was not something an ordinary martial or Dao cultivator could compare to. His body was much more powerful than a five-clawed divine dragon. According to Hua Lao, Duan Lingtian's body was almost comparable to a seven-clawed divine dragon at the same level. Apart from having a powerful body, the number of saint veins that Duan Lingtian had opened up in his body was extremely exaggerated as well. There were a total of 99 saint veins that could be opened up. This was definitely unprecedented in the history of the Dao martial saint land. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian was very confident in his strength. He did not think anyone below the saint stage would be a match for him. Duan Lingtian, who had just come to a stop, could not help but frown when he saw the many pairs of eyes staring at him. This was because he noticed a cold gaze that was filled with killing intent among the thousands of pairs of eyes. He immediately looked in the direction of the gaze and soon saw the owner of the gaze. It's him. The owner of the gaze was none other than Old Man Yin from Skyrex sect. He was also the old man who followed behind Feng Hin, the young sect leader of Skyrex sect, 2 days ago. He was also a saint stage powerhouse. When Duan Lingtian saw it was Old Man Yin, the frown on his face disappeared. He was not surprised that Old Man Yin hated him so much that he could not wait to kill him. After all, he had a feud with the Skyrex sect 2 days ago. Due to this reason, he completely ignored the people from Skyrex sect when he discovered they were looking at him in such a manner. Duan Lingtian's disregard made Old Man Yin's expression extremely grave. If it was not for Situho's presence, he would have attacked Duan Lingtian at lightning speed and killed Duan Lingtian. No matter what, Duan Lingtian's arrival had attracted everyone's attention, causing everything in the surroundings to pale in comparison. Duan Lingtian, Situ Hang, and Situ Ho stood at the side with their eyes closed as they quietly waited for the arrival of Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect. They were extremely calm, as though the person who would challenge Lady Feng was not him, but someone else. Sect leader. Sect leader. Unknowingly, a series of orderly greetings resonated in the air, causing Duan Lingtian to open his eyes involuntarily. With just a glance, he saw a graceful and elegant beautiful woman flying in the air while being escorted by an old man and an old woman. Wherever she passed by, the group of Drift Blaze sect's disciples would greet her respectfully. Their voices were filled with respect. The beautiful woman had a beautiful face. Although it seemed to emit a cold aura that caused people to not dare to look at her directly, one must admit that she was indeed very beautiful. If she was 10 years younger, she would definitely be a rare beauty. She's Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. At this moment, Situ Hang introduced Ziyun to Duan Lingtian softly. Duan Lingtian nodded. After sizing Ziyun up from head to toe, he could not help but feel moved in his heart. Apart from the Windfall Nation's imperial family, nobody in the entire Windfall Nation is a match for such a female martial cultivator. Even until now, Duan Lingtian still found it hard to believe that such a beautiful woman could single-handedly support the entire Drift Blaze sect and make it a 7th-rate sect with a transcendent position in Windfall Nation. Duan Lingtian had to admit that he admired Ziyun very much. The moment Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, appeared, she attracted everyone's attention and completely stole Duan Lingtian's limelight. Sect leader Ziyun. Sect leader Ziyun. At this moment, the guests from various forces took the initiative to greet Ziyun. Their tone was filled with respect. Even the few saint stage powerhouses, including Old Man Yin from Skyrex sect, were no exception. Sect leader Ziyun. After the guests from various forces greeted Ziyun, Situ Hang and Situ Ho also greeted Ziyun. Even when facing Situ Hang and Situ Ho, Ziyun merely nodded at them nonchalantly as a form of greeting. Situ Hang and Situ Ho were not enraged by this since Ziyun treated everyone equally. She did not only target them. You must be the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, right? Just when Duan Lingtian was about to greet Ziyun like Situ Hang and Situ Ho, Ziyun took the initiative to look at him and asked, "Greetings, sect leader Ziyun, Duan Lingtian." Duan Lingtian cupped his hands together and bowed at Zi Yun. Every single one of his actions was courteous and graceful. Duan Lingtian? So his name is Duan Lingtian. At this moment, most of the people present finally learned about Duan Lingtian's full name. After all, apart from the clan leader of Situ clan, the great young master, and Situ Ho, no one else in Windfall Nation knew his full name. Whether it was the clan leader of Situ clan, the great young master of Situ clan, or Situ Ho, all of them were extremely respectful to him. Naturally, they would not spread his name around. Due to this reason, this was the first time Duan Lingtian's name was made public in Windfall Nation. Duan Lingtian. Lingtian. What an arrogant name. I hope his strength is worthy of his name. Many Drift Blaze sect's disciples snorted. Although this is my first time meeting Master Duan, I've long heard about your deeds. Since great young Master Situ is here, and he's safe and sound, it's enough to prove that the rumors are true. Master Duan indeed has the ability to bring people back to life, Ziyun said. Although her tone was still calm, there was a hint of emotion in it. It was not as cold as before. The moment Ziyun opened her mouth, everyone's eyes also shifted to Duan Lingtian. That was right. Due to the fact that Duan Lingtian wanted to challenge Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect, they seemed to have forgotten that Duan Lingtian had saved Situ Hang, who was sentenced to death by a 4-star Saint Inscription Master from the Windfall Nation's imperial family. Duan Lingtian's strength did not seem to lie in his cultivation base, but his ability to bring people back to life. When many people looked at Duan Lingtian again, a hint of respect could be seen in their eyes. Regardless of Duan Lingtian's cultivation base, just his ability to bring people back to life was enough to earn their respect. Sect leader Ziyun, you flatter me. I'm just lucky to be able to help young Master Hang solve his problem. Upon hearing Ziyun's words, Duan Lingtian shook his head. These words were really honest. Chapter 1593. You're too humble, Master Duan. However, Ziyun took Duan Lingtian's honest words as a humble remark. In fact, it was not only Ziyun. Even the other people present on the scene thought that Duan Lingtian was being humble as well. At once, many people had a good impression of Duan Lingtian. Naturally, this did not mean that they would change their minds. They also thought that Duan Lingtian did not stand a chance against Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect. Lady Feng is here. Suddenly, a Drift Blaze sect's disciple cried out in surprise. At once, everyone, including Duan Lingtian, shifted their gaze in the direction of Drift Blaze sect's estate. Over there was a beautiful figure slowly walking over in the air. Every step she took was as though she was taking a leisurely stroll. It gave off a unique sense of beauty. It was a lady dressed in fiery red clothes. Her figure was graceful, and her shoulder-length black hair was like Feng Qingyang's. Due to the veil covering her face, no one could see her face. However, just by looking at her exposed pair of bright eyes, flawless forehead, and eyebrows, one could tell that her face under the veil was unparalleled beauty. Lady Feng. At once, many young men present on the scene stared at the red-clad lady who was walking over with bright eyes. Everyone had a love for beauty. The red-clad lady's perfection was enough to make many men fall in love with her. Even Situ Hang, who was next to Duan Lingtian, was no exception. He was also staring at the red-clad lady as though he had lost his soul. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was also looking at Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect. However, unlike Situ Hang and the others, when he first laid his eyes on Lady Feng, his handsome face could not help but twitch in excitement. His eyes were filled with excitement. It was as though he had seen something amazing. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's thoughts involuntarily drifted to many years ago. Inkstone Empire, Phoenix Perch City, martial competition to find a spouse. At that time, the veiled woman had completely merged with the woman in front of him, causing Duan Lingtian's heart to involuntarily surge. Facing the burning gazes, Feng Tianwu's beautiful face, which was hidden under the veil, did not reveal any expression because she had seen too many similar gazes. Actually, she didn't like such a lively atmosphere. If possible, she didn't want to appear here at all. Soon, Feng Tianwu noticed that among the gazes that were directed at her, there seemed to be a gaze that was completely different from the rest. Their gazes did not conceal their adoration at all. However, there was no adoration in that gaze. Instead, there was only excitement and nostalgia. In addition, this gaze gave her a familiar feeling. Secretly taking a deep breath, Feng Tianwu's gaze landed on the owner of this gaze. It was this gaze that caused Feng Tianwu to feel as though she was struck by lightning. It was a purple figure. The purple figure that appeared in front of her had appeared many times in her dreams in the past few years, supporting her to move forward. Whenever she thought of him, she would cultivate diligently. This was because only then would her master be willing to let her leave and return to Cloud Continent. Currently, her cultivation base was at the imminent saint stage, and she was only a step away from the saint stage. She could already see hope. However, it did not cross her mind that before she made a breakthrough to the saint stage and fulfilled the condition her master had set for her, she would see this man who had haunted her dreams so many times in the past few years. At this moment, she even wondered if she was dreaming. However, when she saw the excitement in the other party's eyes, Feng Tianwu finally regained her senses. Everything before her eyes was not a dream. This was because the him in her dreams in the past would not be so vivid. Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of the others, Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect suddenly reached out her hand and pulled the veil on her face, revealing her true face. At this moment, the entire place fell silent. After the veil was removed, what appeared before everyone's eyes was a beautiful face that could captivate even birds and beasts. Her eyebrows were as beautiful as a painting. Her eyes were as clear as autumn water. Her nose, red lips, and white teeth. Her natural and tranquil features formed a perfect outline. She was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. She was like a fairy that had fallen to the mortal world. How beautiful! This woman should only exist in the heavens. This was the first thought that appeared in most of the people's minds. Even for many of the Drift Blaze sect's elders and disciples, this was their first time seeing Lady Feng's true appearance. Although they had long heard that Lady Feng was extremely beautiful, they had never seen her in person. Therefore, they were suspicious of the words that others had said. However, at this moment, all of their doubts disappeared. Tian Wu, Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, frowned. She knew her disciples' temper very well. By right, it was impossible for her to reveal her true face in front of so many people. However, she was puzzled when she suddenly revealed her true face. Soon after, Ziyun's sharp senses noticed her disciple's gaze seemed to be fixed on someone. Moreover, her gaze was filled with tenderness. It was her first time seeing her disciple reveal such a gaze. Naturally, she was no stranger to such a gaze. A woman would only reveal such a gaze when she saw her true love. Tian Wu. After Feng Tianwu removed her veil and revealed her familiar face, Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and could not help but cry out in surprise. His voice was gentle, and it lingered in the air. The scene before his eyes made him extremely surprised. At this moment, it was as though he had forgotten everything. In his eyes, there was only Feng Tianwu left, challenging the heaven ranking, becoming famous in Windfall Nation, and even the Southern Ridge Yuan Mansion were temporarily thrown to the back of his mind. Elder brother Duan. Before the others regained their senses, Feng Tianwu also cried out in surprise. In the next instant, her graceful figure moved as though she had transformed into a fire elf. In just a blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Duan Lingtian. Then, under the group of people's shocked and disbelieving gazes, Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect took the initiative to throw herself into Master Duan, the interim advisor of Situ clan. At this moment, the group of young men present on the scene seemed to have heard the sound of their hearts shattering. Originally, when Situ Hang saw Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect revealing her true face, he could not help but be attracted to her. When he regained his senses, he was stunned again when he saw Lady Feng making her way to him. He could not help but think to himself, "Don't tell me my charm is so great that Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect wants to throw herself into my arms? Sigh, what a pity. I already have Princess Xiaoming." Chapter 1594. Sidu Hang was speechless when he saw the scene before his eyes. Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect, a powerhouse at the peak of the Saint Rudiment stage who was ranked 23rd in the Heaven ranking, was widely acknowledged as the strongest person among the younger generation in Windfall Nation. She actually threw herself at Master Duan, the interim advisor of Situ clan. Goodness, who could tell him what was going on? In terms of handsomeness, although I'm not as handsome as Master Duan, it's not by much, Situ Heng grumbled inwardly. Naturally, this was only his grumbling. In fact, he could see that the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, and Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect must have known each other since a long time ago. Otherwise, how could a dragon among men like Miss Feng remove her veil in public and lose her composure like this? Tian Wu. Under the piercing gazes, Duan Ling Tian only had eyes for Feng Tianwu. He reached out his hands and hugged Feng Tianwu, who was in his embrace. At this moment, his heart calmed down as though he had found a harbor. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian had to admit that Feng Tianwu was in his heart. Perhaps he did not have such feelings for Feng Tianwu in the beginning. However, the fact that Feng Tianwu had disregarded her life for him had completely moved his heart. Humans were not plants. How could they be heartless? Especially after Feng Tianwu had disappeared. His heart was filled with guilt. He had tried all sorts of ways to bring Feng Tianwu back. Part of the reason he came to the Dao Martial Saint Land was to look for Feng Tianwu. However, he did not find anything at all. It did not cross his mind that he would find Feng Tianwu before he could even find his senior brother, Bai Li Hong, when he came to Windfall Nation on a whim. It did not cross his mind that Feng Tianwu was actually Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect, who was famous in Windfall Nation and even the Southern Ridge Yuan Mansion. Previously, when Feng Tianwu had just appeared and had yet to remove her veil, he had already recognized her with just a glance. At that moment, Feng Tianwu was exactly the same as the Feng Tianwu he first met in Phoenix Nest City. Elder brother Duan. Disregarding the gazes of astonishment and disbelief from the surroundings, Feng Tianwu hugged Duan Ling Tian tightly as if she was deeply afraid Duan Ling Tian would run away. At this moment, it seemed as though Duan Ling Tian was the only person in her world. Nobody knew when, but she was touched by Duan Ling Tian's face, tears of excitement. Damn, what's going on? My goddess actually threw herself at the interim advisor of Situ clan, Duan Ling Tian. Soon after, many Drift Blaze sect's male disciples who had regained their senses began to curse. When they looked at Duan Ling Tian, their eyes were completely red. It was as though they could not wait to kill Duan Ling Tian and replace him with Duan Ling Tian. The group of Drift Blaze sect's elders was also stunned. Lady Feng from their Drift Blaze sect was usually an icy beauty. Apart from the sect leader, she almost never took the initiative to communicate with anyone. However, today, faced with the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, who came to challenge her, not only did she take the initiative to speak, but she even threw herself at him. She looked like a young girl who had just seen her lover. He's the person in Tian Wu's heart? Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, frowned slightly. She knew very well that her disciple was obsessed with returning to the mortal continent. She had even noticed her disciple daydreaming and giggling from time to time. As an experienced person, she, naturally, could tell her disciple was thinking about a man. Based on her speculation, that man was most likely in the mortal continent. She did not interfere in this matter since she knew feelings could not be forced. Since her disciple had already set her mind on someone, they might not even be master and disciple in the end if she interfered rashly. Moreover, she also believed that the man whom her disciple had taken a fancy to was not an ordinary man. Although that man was from the mortal continent. However, it did not cross her mind that the person her disciple was obsessed with was actually the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Look at them, it's obvious they didn't know the other person was here. Previously, I didn't believe in fate, but now, it seems like I have no choice but to believe in it. Fate was something that was vague and ephemeral, but it was something that truly existed. Take Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu, for example. Although they were both in the Dao Martial Saint Land, the Dao Martial Saint Land was so big that it was undoubtedly fate that allowed them to meet here. This, meanwhile, The people from the various forces who came to the Drift Blaze sect to watch the show looked at each other in confusion when they saw this. What's going on? They were completely dumbfounded. What on earth was happening in front of them? Lady Feng, a disciple of Drift Blaze sect, ranked 23rd on the Heaven ranking, and widely acknowledged as the strongest person among the younger generation in Windfall Nation, actually knew the interim advisor of Situ clan, Duan Lingtian, who was challenging her. Not only that, but their relationship seemed to be special as well. Look at them. They seem very excited when they see each other. It's as though they're lovers who have been separated for a long time. Don't tell me they didn't know the other person was here? Many people from the various forces murmured, if that's the case, they're really fated, right? How did they meet each other? Many people exclaimed in a low voice, I'm afraid that today's duel will end early. How are two lovers going to fight? Many people shook their heads regretfully. Tianwu, why are you here? Elder brother Duan, why are you here? Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu finally regained their senses. After they separated, they looked at each other and asked in unison. Both of them were stunned for a moment before they smiled at each other. Especially Feng Tianwu, her peerlessly beautiful face that could be said to be capable of causing the downfall of nations was tainted with a slight blush, and it was like a completely ripe red apple that caused others to be unable to refrain from wanting to take a few bites. At the same time, Feng Tianwu, who regained her senses, also heard the discussions around her. She could not help but look at Duan Lingtian in shock. Elder brother Duan, why you're the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan?
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded. At the same time, he smiled wryly. I didn't expect you to be Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect, Tianwu. If it wasn't for the fact that I couldn't find you, I would have thought this world is too small. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Feng Tianwu's heart was filled with happiness. As it turned out, her elder brother Duan had been looking for her all this while. Naturally, Feng Tianwu noticed the shocked and incredulous gazes around her. However, she ignored them. In her eyes, other people's opinions were not important. She, Feng Tianwu, did not need to care about other people's opinions when she did things. At the same time, under the watchful eyes of the others, Feng Tianwu flew to the front of Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, and said apologetically, Master, I'd like to admit defeat for today's battle. Admit defeat. Feng Tianwu did not deliberately suppress her voice when she said this. For this reason, everyone present on the scene heard her. For a moment, not many people were surprised since they were already mentally prepared for this. However, even so, many people still booed at her. These people were mostly young men. They were either the male disciples of Drift Blaze sect who admired Feng Tianwu, or the men from various forces who were attracted by Feng Tianwu. I can't believe the interim advisor of Situ clan is a man who lives off a woman. Suddenly, a voice resonated in the air, causing many people to laugh out loud. The owner of the voice was none other than the old man with the surname Een from Skyrex sect. He would not miss any opportunity to attack Duan Lingtian. Tianwu, I respect your decision. Although Ziyun was a little dissatisfied in her heart, after all, if Feng Tianwu admitted defeat, it would more or less affect the Drift Blaze sect's reputation. However, when she thought about how this matter could not be forced, she still respected Feng Tianwu's decision and did not interfere. She could not help but look at Duan Lingtian when she saw the commotion caused by the old man with the surname Een from Skyrex sect. She wanted to know how the man her disciple had chosen would react in such a situation. After all, the people from Skyrex sect had hurt his pride as a man. Say that again. Feng Tianwu's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost as she stared coldly at the old man with the surname Een from Skyrex sect, causing the latter to shudder. Perhaps, Feng Tianwu was unable to pose any threat to him now. However, Feng Tianwu's innate talent was enough to make him wary. Perhaps, Feng Tianwu was not as good as him now, but what about in a few years' time? The progress of Feng Tianwu's strength was obvious to all. In just half a year's time, she had gone from entering the Heaven ranking to the 23rd place. The speed of her progress was so fast that it made people speechless. Currently, even if Feng Tianwu had not broken through to the Saint stage, she most likely possessed the strength to be ranked in the top 10 of the Heaven ranking. Once such a person had broken through to the saint stage, she would definitely have the strength to fight him. After all, he was only an ordinary saint stage martial cultivator. Due to this reason, he did not say anything in the face of Feng Tianwu's cold gaze. In his opinion, put aside the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect and the Drift Blaze sect behind Feng Tianwu. Even Feng Tianwu herself was not someone he could afford to offend. Perhaps, in a few years' time, Feng Tianwu would possess the strength to crush him. No matter what, the words of the old man with the surname Een from Skyrex sect had caused the atmosphere to become extremely strange. More than 90% of the people present on the scene were looking at Duan Lingtian strangely as well. It was as though Duan Lingtian was really a gigolo who relied on a woman to get to where he was today. Due to the fact that Feng Tianwu had shouted at the old man with the surname Een from Skyrex sect, the others also knew that Feng Tianwu was brainlessly protecting the interim advisor of Situ clan, Duan Lingtian. Due to this reason, they did not dare to speak recklessly. However, their gazes were unrestrained. They were curious about what Duan Lingtian would do under such circumstances. Chapter 1595. Elder Brother Duan, you don't have to care about what they think. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Feng Tianwu, naturally, thought Duan Lingtian had made such a decision because his pride was hurt. In her opinion, her progress in the past few years could be said to be very fast. Although her elder brother Duan was stronger than her in the past, that might not be the case now. If they were to fight and she deliberately held back, she would definitely be ridiculed. After all, there were many saint stage powerhouses present on the scene. They could see that she had not exerted her full strength. If she deliberately held back, it would not be a good thing for her elder brother Duan. All in all, just like the others, Feng Tianwu did not think Duan Lingtian had the strength to fight with her now. However, no matter how strong Duan Lingtian was, she did not care at all. Even if Duan Lingtian was just an ordinary person, her feelings for him would not change at all. This was because she loved Duan Lingtian as a person and not Duan Lingtian's cultivation base. Tianwu, you've misunderstood. You've known me for so long. Don't you know me well? I don't care what they think of me. However, I heard that your cultivation base has improved tremendously in the past few years. You even entered the 23rd place on the Southern Ridge Yuan Mansion's Heaven ranking 6 months ago. For this reason, I'm very curious about your current strength. Why don't you take this opportunity to show it to elder brother Duan? Duan Lingtian said with a smile. There was no hint of anger on his face because of other people's opinions. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Feng Tianwu's attention was completely focused on Duan Lingtian's eyes. When she saw the confidence in his eyes, she could not help but feel excited. It was not her first time seeing Duan Lingtian's gaze. Don't tell me elder brother Duan also had a fortuitous encounter after coming to the Dao Martial Saintland? Feng Tianwu thought to herself. Feng Tianwu believed that since her elder brother Duan came here as the interim advisor of Situ clan and challenged her, he must have heard about her deeds in Windfall Nation and knew she had the strength to enter the top 10 of the Heaven ranking. In fact, with her current strength, she could enter the top 10 of the Heaven ranking at any time if she wanted to. Due to this reason, when she saw how confident her elder brother Duan was, she guessed her elder brother Duan had had a fortuitous encounter like her after coming to the Dao Martial Saintland and was confident he would be able to fight to her. Under the watchful eyes of the others to the Heaven sects Heaven ranking. At once, the eyes of everyone present on the scene, including Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, lit up. Their eyes were as dazzling as the stars in the night sky. Whoosh, whoosh. After a short while, the spectators retreated a little and cleared out a large space for Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu to use as the arena for the battle. Everyone's eyes were trained on Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu who were facing each other. I can't believe Master Duan from Situ clan still insists on fighting Lady Feng even though she's deliberately going easy on him. Don't tell me he's really confident he can defeat Lady Feng? Many people who originally did not think highly of Duan Lingtian's chances began to waver. Not necessarily. Perhaps, this Duan Lingtian thinks Lady Feng will go easy on him. As for him, he just wants to put on a show for us to see. Someone said, putting on a show? Hermph. Don't forget, there are many seniors here who are at the saint stage. In the eyes of a Saint stage powerhouse, it's easy for them to see if Lady Feng is holding back or not. That's right. If Lady Feng really holds back, this Duan Lingtian will undoubtedly be embarrassed. The onlookers whispered among themselves. Although their voices were not loud, they clearly entered Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu's ears. For a moment, Feng Tianwu couldn't help but frown slightly. As for Duan Lingtian, he had an indifferent expression on his face. It was as though he did not take these people's words to heart at all. In fact, he really did not take these people's words to heart at all. Hold back? Although he did not understand Tianwu's current strength, he was still very confident with his current strength. Moreover, he did not lie earlier. At this moment, he really wanted to know the level of Tianwu's strength. He only knew that Tianwu was very powerful now. However, he would only know how powerful she was after experiencing it for himself. Tianwu, make your move. There's no need to hold back. Use your full strength, Duan Lingtian said to Feng Tianwu through voice transmission. Elder brother Duan, are you really confident? With my current strength, it won't be a problem for me to make it into the top 10 of the heaven ranking. Feng Tianwu could not help but ask through voice transmission. Don't worry. Duan Lingtian's reply made Feng Tianwu feel more assured. It was also at this instant that Feng Tianwu made her move. She raised her slender hands slightly, and a wave of scorching true energy suddenly rose from her body. That was right, it was scorching true energy. Feng Tianwu's true energy was different from the true energy of an ordinary Saint Rudiment stage martial cultivator. As soon as it appeared, it emitted a scorching aura. Even the onlookers who were far away could clearly feel it. Her true energy has an attribute. Feng Tianwu's cultivation base is only one step away from the Saint stage. At this moment, the hearts of the Saint stage powerhouses from various forces trembled in shock. As Saint stage powerhouses, they naturally knew what the scorching aura emitted from Feng Tianwu's true energy meant. It was almost equivalent to a pass to the Saint stage. With Feng Tianwu's innate talent, she would definitely be able to break through to the Saint stage in at most a year now that her true energy had reached such a stage. At this moment, even the Skyrex sect's old man Yin was regretting his words to Duan Lingtian. If he knew earlier that Feng Tianwu already possessed such a cultivation, he would absolutely not take the risk of offending Feng Tianwu to gain a momentary advantage of words. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. When the scorching true energy on Feng Tianwu's body soared up, causing the surrounding space to seem as if it was burning, a huge sword that faintly emitted bursts of flames also condensed and took shape in a timely manner above her head. The terrifying aura emitted by the sword seemed as if it could burn everything. Other than this sword, another gigantic beast appeared above Feng Tianwu's head. It was a gigantic beast with blood energy flashing all over its body. To be more precise, it was a bird-type gigantic beast. One could faintly see wisps of flames burning in the blood energy around its body. The moment it appeared, it caused the already scorching air to heat up even more. It was to the extent that some of the Drift Blaze sect's disciples with a lower cultivation base could not withstand the scorching aura that assaulted their faces. They only managed to stop moving after retreating a distance away. Their eyes were filled with admiration as they stared at Feng Tianwu, who was standing in the middle of the square. This was their Drift Blaze sect's Lady Feng. She was also the pride of the entire Drift Blaze sect. At this moment, they felt proud to be a member of the Drift Blaze sect. This is the Phoenix? When Duan Lingtian saw the bird-type gigantic beast that appeared above Feng Tianwu's head, he could not help but be stunned. This was because this bird-type gigantic beast was very similar to the Phoenix in the ancient myths in his past life. It was at least 70 to 80% similar. Hualao, is this a Phoenix? At this moment, Duan Lingtian could not help but ask Hualao, who was in the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda. Hualao was a three-legged golden crow, an ancient mutant beast. He was very knowledgeable. Therefore, in Duan Lingtian's opinion, Hualao would definitely be able to tell if the gigantic beast that was consolidated by Tianwu's true energy was a phoenix or not. This is a Luanfeng, a branch of the phoenix. It seems like there are not only divine dragons on this planet, but there are also phoenixes as well. Hualao's voice also entered Duan Lingtian's ears in a timely manner. This girl is quite lucky to be able to obtain the Luanfeng's blood essence. Moreover, the Luanfeng that she consolidated must not be an ordinary Luanfeng. Luanfeng, a branch of the phoenix. Realization dawned on Duan Lingtian. Although he did not know how Tianwu had obtained such a fortuitous encounter, he was still happy that Tianwu had such a fortuitous encounter. At the same time, Duan Lingtian discovered that with Tianwu as the center, the area within a 100-meter radius began to emit a scorching aura. Even he was enveloped by it. At the same time, under the watchful eyes of everyone, wisps of scorching flames appeared out of thin air in a 100-meter radius with Feng Tianwu as the center. These flames seemed weak, but when they gathered together, they seemed to have erupted, emitting an even more terrifying scorching aura. Feng Tianwu, who was in the flame territory, looked like a fire empress. She controlled the fire. Whether it was the true energy consolidated weapon, the true energy consolidated beast, or the true energy consolidated territory, all of them were cast by Feng Tianwu in an instant. It was so fast that many people around her could not react in time. Whoosh! A few moments later, Feng Tianwu made her move. The flames in the territory wrapped around her body as though it had transformed into a different kind of armor. It protected her as she charged toward Duan Lingtian at an extremely fast speed. Everywhere she passed, it was as though a fireball had swept across the sky. It seemed as though the air was ignited as a burning smell filled the air. She did not hold back at all. Many of the spectating Saint Stage powerhouses were shocked when they saw Feng Tianwu making her move. As Saint Stage powerhouses, they could see that Feng Tianwu did not hold back at all. Moreover, with the strength that Feng Tianwu had just displayed, they felt that Feng Tianwu had a high chance of winning even if she challenged the top 5 on the heaven ranking, let alone the top 10. Sect leader Zi Yun really accepted a good disciple. Many of the Saint Stage powerhouses from various forces looked at Zi Yun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, with envy and jealousy. Not only was Zi Yun strong, even a disciple that she had accepted could easily crush their disciples. This caused them to be unable to control their eyes from turning red. Lady Feng is so powerful. Looking at her stance, it's obvious she didn't hold back at all. I wonder if the interim advisor of Situ clan, Duan Lingtian, will be able to withstand it. I think it'll be difficult. The group of people stared at the scene without blinking. They wanted to know what would happen to Duan Lingtian in front of the powerful Feng Tianwu. Chapter 1596. Due to Duan Lingtian's confidence, Feng Tianwu did not hold back when she made her move. She went all out as soon as she made her move. This was her trust in Duan Lingtian, and it was also her way of expressing her stance to the others. She did not hold back, and there was no need for her to hold back. Tianwu's strength has actually risen to such a level. Duan Lingtian was also shocked when he saw the strength Feng Tianwu displayed. Although he knew Feng Tianwu was very powerful, he did not expect her to be this powerful. If he had not broken through to the Paramount Saint Rudiment stage, he might not be a match for Tianwu even if he used all his techniques. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. After witnessing Feng Tianwu's strength, Duan Lingtian also knew what was going on. With just a thought, the area within a 100-meter radius around him instantly turned into a sea of swords. Tens of thousands of swords whistled through the air. Wherever they passed, the void seemed to be torn apart, emitting a series of piercing sounds. At the place where Feng Tianwu's territory overlapped with his territory, the flame territory gradually shattered as the sword rays whistled through the air. It was as though a mirror had been hit hard. Duan Lingtian's 10,000 swords territory was like a giant hammer that smashed hard on the surface of the mirror. As the saying went, pull one hair and the whole body will be affected. Although only a part of Feng Tianwu's flame territory was destroyed by Duan Lingtian's 10,000 swords territory, it was this part that affected the rest of the flame territory. In an instant, Duan Lingtian's domineering 10,000 swords territory easily destroyed Feng Tianwu's flame territory under everyone's watchful eyes. In fact, Feng Tianwu's territory was already considered very powerful. However, there was a gap between them. In front of Duan Lingtian's 10,000 swords territory, her flame territory seemed so weak and vulnerable. In just a blink of an eye, It was completely destroyed. Is this a joke? Upon seeing this scene, many of the onlookers had the same thought in their minds. Is Miss Feng going easy on Duan Lingtian? That's too obvious. Even if they're both half-step Saint Stage experts, and even if their domains differ in strength, the difference shouldn't be so exaggerated, right? Miss Feng must be going easy on him. Many people whispered to each other. These people had one thing in common, and that was they were not Saint Stage experts. The Saint Stage powerhouses present on the scene, including Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, fell silent at this moment. Is this Duan Lingtian really from the mortal continent? Ziyun looked at Duan Lingtian. Her heart was filled with shock. Although she had vaguely guessed that the man whom her disciple Feng Tianwu had taken a fancy to was definitely not an ordinary man, she did not expect this man to be so strong. Just his domain alone was enough to crush her disciple Feng Tianwu's domain. As a Saint Stage powerhouse, she, naturally, could see that her disciple Feng Tianwu did not hold back at all. Her domain was also at its peak. However, even then, her domain was still shattered the moment Duan Lingtian's domain appeared. She was certain Duan Lingtian was definitely not a Saint Stage powerhouse. Due to this reason, she deeply realized how terrifying Duan Lingtian's domain was. It was definitely not an ordinary domain. In fact, her disciple Feng Tianwu's domain was an extremely advanced flame domain. One of the reasons why Feng Tianwu was so strong was because of her powerful domain. However, even the powerful flame domain that Feng Tianwu relied on was shattered in front of Duan Lingtian's domain. Everything happened in just a blink of an eye. It was so fast that the onlookers could not react in time. What kind of domain did Duan Lingtian unleash? The expression of the Skyrex sect's old man Yin was extremely ugly. After witnessing Duan Lingtian's domain, he faintly realized that Duan Lingtian had the ability to defeat Feng Tianwu. As a Saint Stage powerhouse like Ziyun, he naturally could see that Feng Tianwu did not hold back at all. However, even then, Duan Lingtian still had the upper hand in terms of domain. The other Saint Stage powerhouses were also shocked. As the group of Saint Stage powerhouses discussed among themselves, the onlookers who originally thought that Feng Tianwu had held back realized that they had misunderstood Feng Tianwu. If Miss Feng didn't hold back, then the foreign advisor of Situ clan, Duan Lingtian's ability is too terrifying, right? That's right. This is too exaggerated. As soon as his domain appeared, it crushed Miss Feng's domain. You should know that Miss Feng is a powerhouse who's ranked at the top of the heaven ranking. It's said that half of her strength comes from her own domain. Without the advantage of her domain, Miss Feng is like a tiger without its fangs. How is she going to fight? Many people were still in disbelief. After all, Duan Lingtian's domain was too shocking for them. Elder brother Duan, what's your domain? After her domain was crushed, Feng Tianwu was also shocked. She was stunned for a moment before she asked with an astonished expression, I feel that my domain has no resistance at all in front of your domain, 10,000 Swords domain. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly, 10,000 Swords domain. When Feng Tianwu heard this, she nodded. Soon after, her eyes shone brilliantly again. Based on the confidence that Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier, she knew that Duan Lingtian was really confident in fighting with her. However, when the scene earlier happened, her heart was still filled with shock. Her big brother Duan had merely unleashed his domain, yet he was able to crush her domain. In retrospect, the moment her elder brother Duan's domain appeared, she clearly felt an oppressive aura rushing towards her, making her a little breathless. However, she did not pay much attention to it at that time. It was not until after her domain was crushed that she realized that her elder brother Duan's strength today was not something she could compare to. The destruction of her domain also meant that her strength would be greatly reduced. Under such circumstances, her defeat was inevitable. 10,000 Swords domain? When Duan Lingtian opened his mouth to respond to Feng Tianwu, the onlookers also heard Duan Lingtian's words and knew what domain Duan Lingtian used. 10,000 Swords domain. It really lives up to its name. In Duan Lingtian's domain, I'm afraid there are really tens of thousands of solidified sword rays. Moreover, they don't look much different from real swords. Such a domain looks domineering. I didn't expect it to be so powerful as well. Most of the people present on the scene had their eyes focused on the sword rays that were wreaking havoc within a 100-meter radius around Duan The sword rays seemed to have surrounded Duan and formed a world of swords. 10,000 swords domain? After hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect, narrowed her eyes. If it's really the 10,000 swords domain, doesn't that mean he's most likely the successor of the first absolute? In Ziyun's heart, there was a secret that only she knew. It was a fortuitous encounter she had when she was young. That fortuitous encounter allowed her to obtain the inheritance of a female powerhouse. That female powerhouse claimed to be the successor of the Blazing Phoenix progeny, the fifth absolute of the seven absolute sect. After she obtained the inheritance, it was equivalent to her inheriting the Blazing Phoenix progeny's inheritance. She became the only successor of the Blazing Phoenix progeny. Due to that fortuitous encounter, her innate talent that was originally not very strong was further stimulated. Currently, she even possessed a strength that even the Windfall Nation's imperial family was wary of. She knew very well that if it was not for that fortuitous encounter, she might not even be a Saint Stage powerhouse now, let alone a Saint Stage powerhouse that even the Windfall Nation's imperial family was wary of. Her entire life had changed because of that fortuitous encounter. For this reason, she was filled with gratitude toward the female powerhouse who left behind the Blazing Phoenix progeny's inheritance and remembered her message. In the message left behind by the female powerhouse, she had mentioned that she hoped that after she obtained the inheritance, she would continue to pass down the Blazing Phoenix progeny until the Seven Absolutes sect's Seven Absolutes order appeared. Once the Seven Absolutes order appeared, the Blazing Phoenix progeny would have to return to the Seven Absolute sect. As long as the Seven Absolute sect needed it, they would be willing to contribute everything to the Seven Absolute sect. Due to the fact that her innate talent was only ordinary, it would be difficult for her to achieve great things even if she continued to improve her cultivation. For this reason, Ziyun had been looking for a young genius who could inherit the Blazing Phoenix progeny since a long time ago. Feng Tianwu was the young genius that she had found. Although she was born in the mortal continent, her innate talent was extraordinary. What made her even more surprised was that when Feng Tianwu cultivated the Blazing Phoenix progeny's mental cultivation method, her speed of improvement was terrifying. It was as though the Blazing Phoenix progeny's mental cultivation method was made for her. When Ziyun saw how Feng Tianwu managed to achieve her current level in just a few years with the help of the Blazing Phoenix progeny's mental cultivation method, she knew she could finally give an explanation to the powerhouse who left behind the Blazing Phoenix progeny's inheritance. Due to her innate talent, it was difficult for her to shoulder the responsibility of inheriting the Blazing Phoenix progeny. However, this disciple of hers could do it. She believed her disciple's innate talent in the martial Tao was definitely not inferior to the successors of the other six absolutes of the seven absolutes sect other than the Fog Rain progeny, the first absolute. She did not dare to compare herself to the first absolute, the Fog Rain progeny. This was because the female powerhouse who left her the inheritance had left behind some information about the seven absolute sect. She had emphasized on the Fog Rain progeny, the first absolute of the seven absolute sect. As the first absolute of the seven absolute sect, the Fog Rain progeny was different from the other six absolutes. It could go 1,000 years without a successor, 10,000 years without a successor, or even 100,000 years without a successor. However, the appearance of its successor also signified the beginning of a new era. There was a saying in the Tao Martial Saintland. The successor of the Fog Rain progeny, the first absolute of the seven absolutes, could summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. This saying was widely acknowledged by most people in the Tao Martial Saintland. Based on this, one could see how famous the Fog Rain progeny of the seven absolutes sect was. The previous successor of the Fog Rain progeny was said to be a powerhouse known as the Sword Saint. The territory he mastered was the 10,000 Swords territory. Chapter 1597. It can't be so coincidental. After all, the Tao Martial Saint Land is so big, and there are all kinds of strange things. Although the previous successor of the Fog Rain progeny mastered the 10,000 Swords territory, I don't know what his 10,000 swords territory looks like. Soon after, Ziyun comforted herself. It must be a coincidence. It's just a coincidence of the name of the territory. The moment Ziyun thought of this, she calmed down again. However, even if he's not the successor of the Fog Rain progeny, his innate talent is still very high. He should be around Tianwu's age, but he's already strong enough to defeat her. Ziyun's eyes shone brightly as she wondered if she could take Duan Lingtian as her disciple through Feng Tianwu. If she had both Feng Tianwu and Duan Lingtian as her disciples, she would have no more regrets in her life. Feng Tianwu was going to inherit the Blazing Phoenix progeny's legacy. Her achievements in the future would not be restricted by the Drift Blaze sect. As for Duan Lingtian, although his innate talent was high and he was currently stronger than Tianwu, she did not think Duan Lingtian would be able to compare to Feng Tianwu in the future. The Blazing Phoenix progeny's mental cultivation method would become more terrifying as one cultivated it. This was why she was so confident in Feng Tianwu. Due to this reason, she thought she could take Duan Lingtian as her disciple and nurture him to be the next sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. What a pity. The territory has been crushed. Lady Feng's defeat is certain. Many people shook their heads and sighed. All of them looked at Duan Lingtian with a complicated expression. Initially, they thought it was impossible for Duan Lingtian to be a match for Feng Tianwu. However, the reality before their eyes seemed to have given them a loud slap. Although some people thought Feng Tianwu had held back, they did not say anything since the Saint Stage powerhouses present on the scene said Feng Tianwu had done her best. After all, they were only skeptical. How could they have a higher standard than a group of Saint Stage powerhouses? In addition to her domain, Miss Feng's giant beast Dharma power is also extremely powerful. If this Duan Lingtian doesn't use his domain, he's definitely no match for Miss Feng. You're going overboard with your words. Domains are also Duan Lingtian's methods, so why isn't he using them? Also, he didn't ask Miss Feng not to use her domain. It's just that Miss Feng's domain was crushed by his. Exactly. Apart from martial and Dao cultivators below the paramount Saint Rudiment stage, who else mainly relies on the true energy consolidated beast? Or rather, if both of them are only perfection Saint Rudiment stage martial cultivators, he's definitely no match for Lady Feng. The onlookers whispered among themselves. Based on their words, they were certain that the reason Duan Lingtian was stronger than Feng Tianwu was because Duan Lingtian's territory was too heaven-defying. As for other aspects, they didn't think that Duan Lingtian could compare with Feng Tianwu. Duan Lingtian was amused by this. Then, he withdrew his 10,000 swords territory under everyone's watchful eyes. With a thought in his mind, the 10,000-plus sword lights that appeared in an area of 100 meters with him as the center vanished without a trace in the blink of an eye, causing everyone, including Feng Tianwu, to be stunned. Duan Lingtian actually withdrew his territory? Many people widened their eyes in disbelief. It seems like he heard us. It's obvious he heard us. What's he trying to do? Is he trying to fight Miss Feng without using his territory? If that's the case, then he's really asking for trouble. The onlookers discussed among themselves. They looked at Duan Lingtian as though they were looking at an idiot. This was because they felt that only an idiot would do something like this. It was obvious that he was going to win, but he still chose to avoid the advantage. He was asking for trouble. Not far away, Situ Hang, the great young master of Situ clan, and Situ Ho, the supreme elder of Situ clan, were also shocked by Duan Lingtian's territory. Although they knew Duan Lingtian was very powerful and had the strength to enter the heaven ranking, they did not expect Duan Lingtian's territory to be so powerful that it could easily crush Feng Tianwu's territory. After all, Feng Tianwu was not an ordinary eminent Saint Stage powerhouse. Although she was only ranked 23rd on the heaven ranking, anyone could see that her current strength could definitely make it into the top 10 of the heaven ranking. Even so, she was still at a disadvantage in front of Duan Lingtian. Moreover, her defeat was certain. However, just when they thought Duan Lingtian would seize the opportunity to pursue and defeat Feng Tianwu, Duan Lingtian's reaction was beyond their expectations. They had also heard the whispers among the onlookers earlier, but they all felt that it was nonsense. Territory was a part of one's strength. A powerful territory naturally represented one's strength. Everything else was meaningless. However, they did not expect Duan Lingtian to take the initiative to withdraw his mysterious and powerful 10,000 swords territory as though he cared about the onlookers' opinions. Elder brother Duan, there's no need to continue this battle. Feng Tianwu took the initiative to tell Duan Lingtian. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian was stunned for a moment before he nodded his head. In fact, he had removed the 10,000 swords domain because he wanted to see how powerful Tian Wu's Luan Phoenix celestial power was and how it compared to his divine dragon celestial power. It was not purely because of the whispers of the onlookers. It was not up to the onlookers to judge Duan Lingtian's actions. However, after hearing Feng Tianwu's words, Duan Lingtian calmed down. He felt there was no need to rush even if he wanted to spar with Tian Wu using the true energy consolidated beast technique. The interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, has defeated Lady Feng from our Drift Blaze sect. From today onward, Master Duan is ranked 23rd in the Heaven ranking. Lady Feng's name will be removed from the Heaven ranking. At this moment, a Drift Blaze sect's elder announced the result of today's battle with a loud voice. Until now, some people still could not believe this result. However, the truth was right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe it. No matter what, today's battle had come to an end. After it had ended, the people from the various forces who came to watch the show felt extremely complicated. The reason they came here was to test the strength of the interim advisor of Situ clan, Master Duan, who had suddenly appeared. However, they had just witnessed Duan Lingtian's strength. If it was only Duan Lingtian's strength, it would not be a big deal. After all, no matter how powerful Duan Lingtian was, he was only an imminent saint stage powerhouse. He would not pose much of a threat to the various forces. Their feelings were complicated mainly because of the relationship between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu. In Windfall Nation, who did not know about Lady Feng's position in Drift Blaze sect. To a certain extent, Lady Feng could represent her master, Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. In other words, Lady Feng alone could represent the entire Drift Blaze sect. In other words, from today onward, due to the relationship between Feng Tianwu and Duan Lingtian, the relationship between Drift Blaze sect and Situ clan would be cut off. This was not a good thing for them. Since the battle had come to an end, the people from the various forces left one after another after bidding farewell to Ziyun, the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. Even the Skyrex sect's Saint Stage powerhouse, Old Man Yin, left with Feng Hin, the young sect leader of Skyrex sect. Along the way, his expression was gloomy as though something was bothering him. I can't believe he actually won. However, no matter what, I must kill him. Along the way, Feng Hin did not stop muttering this sentence. Based on his words, it was obvious he hated Duan Lingtian to the core. If he doesn't die, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Young sect leader, if it's possible, it's best for you to forget about the conflict between you and the interim advisor of Situ clan. Old Man Yin finally could not help but say this. Why? Upon hearing Old Man Yin's words, Feng Hin frowned. His expression was grave. He injured me so badly, and you want me to forget about it? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Young sect leader, I know you can't wait to tear him into pieces. However, if you really go against him, put aside the fact that he has the Situ clan backing him up. Even without the Situ clan, that Feng Tianwu from Drift Blaze sect definitely won't just stand by and do nothing. Old Man Yin smiled wryly. Feng Tianwu? Feng Hin frowned. He had never heard of this name before. Feng Tianwu is Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect. The old man sighed. Lady Feng? What does it have to do with her if I want to deal with that fellow from Situ clan? Moreover, that fellow from Situ clan defeated her and replaced her on the Heaven ranking. I think she hates that fellow. Why would she stand up for him? Although Feng Hin knew Duan Lingtian had won the battle today, that was all he knew. The old man next to him did not have the time to tell him the details of what had happened today. Young sect leader, there's something you don't know. The old man let out another long sigh. Then, he told Feng Hin everything that had happened that day in detail. He told him about how Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu not only knew each other, but they were also suspected to be lovers. That Duan Lingtian actually has such a relationship with Lady Feng from Drift Blaze sect? After learning about this, Feng Hen's expression turned grave. The veins on his forehead bulged as his expression turned even more ferocious. How could he possibly have such a relationship with Lady Feng from Driftblaze sect? No. Impossible. Impossible. Feng Hen continued to roar. His tone was filled with unwillingness. Although he was a good-for-nothing rich kid, it did not mean he was brainless. In Windfall Nation, apart from the younger generation in the imperial family, there was no one among the younger generation that he did not dare to offend. It was undoubtedly Lady Feng from Driftblaze sect. In Windfall Nation, who did not know that Lady Feng from Driftblaze sect was the favorite of Ziyun, the sect leader of Driftblaze sect. Chapter 1598. Due to this reason, after learning about the relationship between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu, Feng Hen realized it was impossible for him to seek revenge by relying on the Skyrex sect. This was because it was impossible for the Skyrex sect to offend Feng Tianwu and the Driftblaze sect. Even his father, the sect leader of Skyrex sect, would definitely advise him to let go of this grudge after learning about this matter. At this moment, Feng Hen finally realized why the old man next to him would ask him to let go of this grudge. However, his heart was still filled with unwillingness. However, even though he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. In terms of strength, he was not a match for the other party. In terms of background, he seemed to be weaker than the other party as well. The other party was suppressing him in every aspect like a gigantic mountain pressing down on his head, causing him to be unable to see the light. All he could see was darkness. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not know about Feng Hen's unwillingness and thoughts. Currently, due to Feng Tianwu, he had also become the Driftblaze sect's VIP. Even the two people from Situ clan had been reduced to a foil for him. Since Duan Lingtian and the other two arrived at the Driftblaze sect 2 days ago, this was the first time the Driftblaze sect hosted a banquet for the three of them. Naturally, Situ Hang and Situ Ho knew this was all thanks to Duan Lingtian. During the banquet, Ziyun, the sect leader of Driftblaze sect, sat in the host's seat while Feng Tianwu sat on the seat below her. Her eyes never left Duan Lingtian. The smile on her face set off her beautiful face, making it seem as though everything around her would pale in comparison. When Ziyun saw this, she sighed inwardly. She was able to discern that this disciple of hers was obviously completely focused on Duan Lingtian. Even she, the master, was not as important as Duan Lingtian in this disciple's heart. Although she was jealous, there was nothing she could do. A grown woman could not be kept at home. Perhaps this was what she meant. Of course, she also knew that these words were not suitable for this disciple of hers, because she had only met this disciple of hers a few years ago. However, this disciple of hers had known Duan Lingtian for a long time and had fallen in love with Duan Lingtian. During the banquet, Situ Hang and Situ Ho repeatedly toasted Ziyun. Seeing that it was Feng Tianwu, Ziyun did not refuse. It could be said that she had given Situ Hang and Situ Ho enough face. As time passed by, Situ Hang and Situ Ho noticed the atmosphere was a little quiet. They only ate a little before they bade farewell and left, leaving Duan Lingtian behind. They were not fools. Naturally, they knew that the reason why the atmosphere was so silent was because of their presence. Therefore, they left at the right time. As soon as Situ Hang and Situ Ho left, Ziyun also dismissed her subordinates. In an instant, only Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, and Ziyun were left. Thank you, sect leader Ziyun, for taking care of Tianwu all these years. Duan Lingtian stood up and thanked Ziyun sincerely. Tianwu's my disciple, so it's only right for me to take care of her. As for you, what's your relationship with Tianwu? What right do you have to thank me on her behalf? Ziyun asked nonchalantly as she sized up Duan Lingtian with interest. Upon hearing Ziyun's words, Duan Lingtian was stunned. His relationship with Tianwu? It was obvious that they were not friends. Moreover, if they were just friends, he would not have lost his composure when he first met Tianwu. Should he say that he treated Tianwu as his sister? That did not seem appropriate. If it was said that he had treated Tianwu more like a younger sister in the past, then, ever since Tianwu had sacrificed herself for him, his heart for Tianwu had undergone a tremendous change. It was just that he had always been unwilling to admit it. After so many years, he discovered that he could no longer suppress the emotions in his heart when he saw Tianwu again. Naturally, he did not plan to reveal his emotions just like that. If he revealed his emotions at this moment and stayed together with Tianwu, how could he face his two fiancées whose whereabouts were unknown? Master. When Feng Tianwu saw that Duan Lingtian seemed to be stumped by Zi Yun's question and did not respond for a long time, she still took the initiative to help Duan Lingtian out, even though she was slightly disappointed in her heart. Girl, you're not married to him yet, and you're already helping him like this? Won't you be bullied to death by him when you're married to him? It was rare for Zi Yun to joke around. This joke caused Feng Tianwu's beautiful face to blush. She was so shy that she looked like a little daughter-in-law who was about to be married. All right, I'll stop joking with you. Zi Yun withdrew the smile on her face and shifted her gaze from Feng Tianwu to Duan Lingtian. Her eyes were burning as she asked, Master Duan, the territory that you cast earlier seems to be called the 10,000 Swords territory, right? Sect leader, you're Tianwu's master. Naturally, you're my senior as well. I don't dare to be called master. You can just call me by my name. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. At the same time, he continued to say, Indeed, my territory is called the 10,000 Swords territory. Did you give it another name yourself? Zi Yun asked. Of course not. Duan Lingtian shook his head. After I made a breakthrough to the Paramount Saint Rudiment stage, information about territories appeared in my mind. According to the information in my mind, I found out that the territory I mastered is called the 10,000 Swords territory. You didn't name it yourself? Zi Yun's heart skipped a beat when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. Previously, she thought it was Duan Lingtian who named his territory the 10,000 Swords territory. However, it seemed like she had guessed wrongly. Although many territories have the same name, I've never heard of the 10,000 Swords territory other than the words left behind by the senior who left behind the blazing phoenix progeny's inheritance. Zi Yun gasped inwardly before she looked at Duan Lingtian again and said bluntly, 7 Absolute Sect? 7 Absolute Sect? When Duan Lingtian heard Zi Yun's sudden words, he asked in confusion, Sect leader Zi Yun, is this 7 Absolute Sect also a sect in Windfall Nation? Although he did not know why Zi Yun suddenly mentioned the 7 Absolute Sect, he still asked. Feng Tianwu knew about the 7 Absolute Sect. However, she could not figure out why her master would mention the 7 Absolutes sect to her elder brother Duan. The 7 Absolute sect was a force that existed in the Dao Martial Saintland a long time ago. If her master did not tell her, she would not have known such a sect existed in the Dao Martial Saintland. Moreover, she also knew the mental cultivation method of the blazing phoenix progeny that she cultivated came from the 7 Absolutes sect. There were 7 Absolutes in the 7 Absolutes sect. The blazing phoenix progeny was one of the 5 Absolutes in the 7 Absolutes sect. You don't know about the 7 Absolutes sect? Zi Yun was stunned when she heard Duan Lingtian's words. Chapter 1599. I've never heard of it before. Duan Lingtian shook his head in response to Zi Yun's question. This was his first time hearing about the 7 Absolute sect. Upon hearing this, Zi Yun sighed inwardly. She realized she was being too sensitive. Well, how could there be such a coincidence in this world? The fog rain, the first absolute of the 7 Absolute sect, is undoubtedly the most mysterious among the 7 Absolutes. It'd be too unbelievable if it's so easy to meet him. The moment Zi Yun thought of this, she no longer asked any further questions. This was because she felt it was no longer necessary. Initially, she thought if Duan Lingtian was really the successor of the fog rain, the first absolute of the 7 Absolute sect, with the innate talent and strength he displayed, his future achievements would definitely not be inferior to her disciple, Feng Tianwu. However, now that she realized Duan Lingtian had nothing to do with the 7 Absolute sect, she still insisted on her previous thoughts. She felt Duan Lingtian would be left behind by Feng Tianwu in the future. Are you interested in joining my sect and becoming my direct disciple? Soon after, Zi Yun asked Duan Lingtian without beating around the bush. Her words took Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu by surprise for a moment. With your innate talent and strength, your future is limitless. If you're willing to become my direct disciple, you'll be the next sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. Ziyun looked at Duan Lingtian and promised. If it was someone else, Ziyun would definitely not make such a promise. However, because of Feng Tianwu, she was not worried about Duan Lingtian. A man whom her disciple took a liking to was definitely not a cunning person. It should not be a problem for him to inherit the Drift Blaze sect. Upon hearing Ziyun's words, Duan Lingtian could not help but frown. At the same time, he glanced at Feng Tianwu. You don't have to think too much. After noticing Duan Lingtian's gaze, Ziyun naturally guessed that he thought she was unwilling to pass the position to Feng Tianwu. For a moment, she could not help but continue to say, the path that Tianwu is going to take is different from the path that you're going to take. In the future, it's impossible for her to inherit the position of the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. Her stage isn't limited to the Windfall Nation. Ziyun's words were filled with confidence towards Feng Tianwu. At the same time, it also showed that the position of the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect was not worthy of Feng Tianwu. When Duan Lingtian heard this, he retracted his gaze. Many thanks for Sect Master Ziyun's kind intentions. However, I already have a master. Duan Lingtian politely declined. Ever since he inherited Sword Saint Feng Qingyang's supreme mental cultivation method, Sovereign Heart Sword, he had regarded Sword Saint Feng Qingyang as his master. Ziyun originally wanted to say something, but when she saw Duan Lingtian's unwavering gaze, she no longer wasted her breath. She had lived for half of her life. Naturally, she knew what Duan Lingtian's gaze meant. It meant that no matter what she said, Duan Lingtian would not be willing to become her disciple. For a moment, she was rather disappointed. However, although she was disappointed, she did not intend to force it. You don't have to acknowledge me as your master. After a while, Ziyun seemed to have made a major decision as she continued to say, as long as you join our Drift Blaze sect, you don't have to acknowledge anyone as your master. I'll use the best cultivation resources to nurture you. As for you, you'll also be able to become the sect leader of Drift Blaze sect in the future. It was apparent that Ziyun really valued Duan Lingtian's innate talent. Sect Master Ziyun, I'm afraid I can't do as you wish because I don't plan to stay in Windfall Nation for long. Duan Lingtian politely declined again. Upon hearing that, Ziyun frowned slightly. However, she no longer said anything and merely nodded her head nonchalantly. After confirming that Duan Lingtian was not a member of the Seven Absolutes sect and that Duan Lingtian would not join the Drift Blaze sect, Ziyun no longer had any interest in staying. After bidding farewell to Feng Tianwu and Duan Lingtian, she immediately left. At this moment, only Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu were left. Both of them were curious about each other's experiences. Soon after, Duan Lingtian learned about her experiences in the past few years from Feng Tianwu. She told him everything from when she left Cloud Continent to when she left the overseas Saint Island and went to Windfall Nation's Drift Blaze sect. Compared to his bumpy journey, Feng Tianwu's journey was much smoother. Elder brother Duan, how about you? Feng Tianwu asked as she looked at Duan Lingtian. Upon hearing that, Duan Lingtian told her everything that had happened in the past few years. He did not hide anything since there was no need for him to hide anything. He even told her about how his two fiancées were pregnant and their whereabouts were unknown. At the same time, a worried expression appeared on his face. Elder brother Duan, I'm sure both of my sisters will be blessed. After Feng Tianwu heard that Kerr and Li Fei were pregnant with Duan Lingtian's child, a hint of envy flashed in the depth of her eyes. At the same time, she comforted Duan Lingtian. Tianwu, your father is also in the Dao Martial Saint Land now. Duan Lingtian told Feng Tianwu. After the incident on Half Moon Island, he followed me to the Dao Martial Saint Land. Duan Lingtian told her everything that had happened to Feng Wu Dao after he came to the Dao Martial Saint Land. When Feng Tianwu heard that her father had come to the Dao Martial Saint Land, a hint of joy could be seen on her face. However, when she heard that her father's whereabouts were unknown, her heart skipped a beat as a worried expression appeared on her face. Don't worry, Uncle Feng is with my senior brother. Nothing will happen to him. Duan Lingtian comforted her. Moreover, the reason I came to the Drift Blaze sect this time is to spread my name. This is the only way my senior brother will know that I've come to the Windfall Nation and will go to the Situ clan in the Windfall Nation's imperial city to look for me. At that time, Uncle Feng will also come to the Situ clan. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Feng Tianwu felt more at ease. However, she still frowned slightly. She was still worried about her father's safety. Tianwu, I'll be leaving the Drift Blaze sect tomorrow and returning to the Situ clan. Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Tianwu and asked, "Are you coming with me?" Naturally, Feng Tianwu wanted to leave with Duan Lingtian. However, the moment she thought of her master, Ziyun, she did not agree to it immediately. "Elder brother Duan, I'll have to inform master first." Soon after, Feng Tianwu went to look for Ziyun. Ziyun's answer was simple. Before Feng Tianwu broke through to the saint stage, she did not want Feng Tianwu to leave because the outside world was too dangerous. Even with Ziyun's deterrence, who knew if there would be some crazy person who would make a move on her disciple? When Feng Tianwu saw Ziyun's attitude that said there was no room for discussion, she knew she would not be able to leave the Drift Blaze sect before she broke through to the saint stage. Moreover, she knew her master was doing this for her own good. Saint stage? After Duan Lingtian learned of Ziyun's answer, he nodded. There's nothing wrong with sect leader Ziyun's decision. In that case, Tianwu, you can stay in the Drift Blaze sect for the time being. When your cultivation base has broken through to the saint stage, you can leave the Drift Blaze sect to look for me. Of course, before that, I'll come to the Drift Blaze sect to look for you whenever I'm free. When Duan Lingtian saw the reluctant expression on Feng Tianwu's face, he added. Only then did Feng Tianwu's reluctant expression soften. If Uncle Feng comes to the Situ clan, I'll come with him to see you immediately. Duan Lingtian spoke first when he saw Feng Tianwu lightly opening her red lips and seeming to want to say something. Because he knew that the person Feng Tianwu wanted to speak about was surely her father, Feng Wu Dao. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, a smile appeared on Feng Tianwu's face. As the saying went, a man is a man. A gentleman would die for his bosom friend, and a woman would dress up for her lover. Apart from dressing up for her lover, a woman would also dress up for her bosom friend. The next day, Duan Lingtian, Situ Hang, and Situ Ho left the Drift Blaze sect together. When they arrived, the Drift Blaze sect's disciples were extremely cold to them. However, when they left, the Drift Blaze sect's disciples did not dare to neglect them at all. Naturally, it could also be because Feng Tianwu was present. In the eyes of the Drift Blaze sect's disciples, Feng Tianwu was undoubtedly the next sect leader of Drift Blaze sect. Nobody was willing to take the risk to offend her. Tianwu, let's go back. Duan Lingtian smiled at Feng Tianwu. Elder brother Duan, I'll go back after you leave. Feng Tianwu replied. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly and did not say anything else. He turned around and left with Situ Hang and Situ Ho. Soon after, they disappeared into the horizon. Their figures also gradually disappeared before Feng Tianwu's eyes. It was only until Duan Lingtian's figure disappeared that Feng Tianwu retracted her gaze reluctantly and turned around to return to the Drift Blaze sect. Master Duan, what's your relationship with Lady Feng from the Drift Blaze sect? The way she treats you is as though you're her lover. On the way, Situ Hang could not suppress the fire of gossip in his heart. He could not help but ask. In the face of Situ Hang's question, Duan Lingtian merely smiled and did not reply. This was because he did not know how to reply. At this moment, his feelings were complicated. Originally, he had already accepted Feng Tianwu in his heart. However, the moment he recalled that his two fiancées' whereabouts were unknown, he no longer had the mood to think about anything else. When Situ Hang realized that Duan Lingtian seemed unwilling to talk about it, he no longer asked and changed the topic. Master Duan, after yesterday's battle where you defeated Lady Feng, I'm afraid it won't take long for your name to spread across the entire Windfall Nation. At that time, as long as your senior brother is in Windfall Nation, he'll definitely hear about your deeds. At that time, he'll definitely come to the capital to look for you. Situ Hang replied. I hope so. Duan Lingtian nodded. He also hoped that things would go smoothly. When Duan Lingtian, Situ Hang, and Situ Ho returned to the capital, the faraway Greenwave Han mansion had also gradually calmed down. However, the calmness was only on the surface. As the supreme elder of the Greenwave Han Mansion, naturally, Han Xian would not let the matter rest when his only grandson died just like that. No matter who it is, I'll make you pay with your life for killing my grandson. Han Xian's eyes were bloodshot. It was as though he had transformed into an extremely bloodthirsty devil at this moment. At the same time, Han Shuanai and the others had also returned to the Crimson Sky Kingdom on Cloud Continent. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.